and welcome back to yet another community watch party for the Pantheon developer update stream. I hope you had a great week this week, and I hope you are ready to cap it off by settling in for a nice long discussion about Pantheon, because yesterday was the Visionary Realms Year in Review Twitch stream, and it looks like it was about an hour and a half, and today I have not seen any of it. We're going to be reacting to it and discussing it. And for those of you who frequent my watch parties, you know that I can take a half an hour stream and stretch it into a 2-hour discussion. You know, when I get talking, I'm like Moana. There's no telling how far I'll go. So we have an hour and a half stream here today. I don't know. Get your beverages ready. I'm going to be, as usual, drinking some nice cold water out of a BazgrimTV mug. What is your beverage of choice here today? Let me know. How's everybody doing? Host and Pathlighter says this is a fun stream. People enjoyed it. That's good to hear. I'm ready for a good time. Ziploc says, yeah, we might be here a while. Grizzly, oh my god, this is going to take a long time today. I'm totally fine with that. I got nothing else to do. I'm good to go. Sounds like we'll have a lot to discuss here. I mean, it's the year in review. We've got to talk about the entire year. It honestly kind of feels weird doing a year in review this early. Like it feels early for that. We're not even halfway through November. Like I'm still munching on my Halloween candy. But I guess that means that does that mean that they're not going to be doing a developer stream next month? Is that what that means? Which I guess understandable if it falls like too close to the holidays, you know. Game developers are humans too. They need to take time off to be with their families and everything. So this might be the last dev stream of the year, but remember, we do also have Parting the Veil live now every month, and so we're gonna reconvene in just a week from now to discuss that too. But that's different. For today, though, we got the year in review, and there's a lot. I already have a lot to say about that, but I'm gonna wait. We're gonna see what the devs cover. Maybe we'll get some interesting tidbits from that. Hey, Oren, I'm doing great, man. How are you? Postum says, I think Drop implied there would be something next month. Ziploc says, unclear about December, but it's all good. But it's all God. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. MTK, I mean, these are edible, but they are they're totally innocuous. Just gummies, like I said. I didn't really have much of a lunch. So this is essentially my lunch. I just grabbed some Halloween candy, and that's what's going to be sustaining me through this stream, because I just didn't have time. I wanted to jump on and hang out with you guys. Feels like it's been a while. I've been pretty busy this past month, but how about you? Everybody have a good Halloween. In the US, we got Thanksgiving coming up. It's like we got Christmas. Everything's gonna start happening fast here. Oren says, I wonder if they took this time to get a larger group together for this, because it sounds like they're going to be ramping things up, especially with testing. Yeah, I had that thought, because I did see in the original promo. Well, let me look it up here so that I don't misquote anything. But I saw that there was a pretty good lineup of developers for this stream. Chris Perkins, Ben Dean, Adam Taham is he's a game designer and production manager. Kyle, lead programmer. Jan Gerhardt, lead writer. So yeah, I mean that's quite a few big names there. So I wonder if maybe they will still do something next month, but this was just the month where all their schedules lined up where they could actually be on stream at the same time. So that definitely has the propensity to get some good beans out of those guys. I will be playing Devstream Bingo again, as usual. Updated the cards. I got Bingo last month. We'll see about this time around. I gotta think in an hour and a half, man. I'm telling you, if I don't get Bingo in an hour and a half long stream about a year in review where they pretty much talk about everything there is to talk about with Pantheon, I better be getting Bingos up the wazoo here. Hit exclamation bingo in chat if you want to play along with me, or if you just want to watch me. That's fine too. I could use the backup because I found it very difficult to stream and watch the stream and play bingo all at the same time. It's harder than it looks, folks. But let's switch on over here. I don't see any reason to delay this any longer. Go ahead, if you get your bingo card. Check off your free space here. Let's see what I got. Immersion, excited, robust. Gameplay footage. Scale, Unity, Alpha. Exploration. Development, soon. Perception, class, climate, social, vision. Interdependence, craft, this month. Pre-recorded voiceover, world patch notes, flyover video, onward, upward, and lore. I don't see how I can lose. This is a guaranteed home run. Like I said, we got all our bases covered with the devs here. The devs that are going to be on stream. Let's find out.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the November 2022 Pantheon Rise of the Fallen development stream. I just lost that bet. We got a great show for you tonight. I am your host, David Roenick-Schlau. With me as always is Anthony Guidi, aka Minus. What's up, Tony?
Oh, excited for tonight.
Oh, excited.
Well, we've as you can see, we have a slew of developers with us tonight. Joining us is creative director and programming producer Chris Perkins.
Hey everybody.
Production manager Adam Mostel.
Good evening, everyone.
Lead programmer Kyle Olson.
Howdy.
And lead writer Jan Gerhardt.
Good evening, everyone.
So we got, like I said, we got a great show tonight. We're gonna have everybody kind of go into each department and talk a little bit about what they've been doing this year. Some of the highlights and some of the things that they're working on currently, and then some of the things they're going to be working on
I see a flyover video.
So we'll start with Kyle and just go ahead and go for it.
Yeah, this year has been both a blur and extremely productive for programming. The main things we got in were the HDRP conversion, obviously, and the whole build machine and pipeline around that. You get artists and designers unblocked to get content into the game quickly and efficiently. That's been a really big one this year. And then obviously the vinyl networking implementation that was completed and integrated and successfully tested with that last PA session. We got a bunch of players up in the same zone. More recently, we got a big focus on performance based on that last PA session. Server performance was pretty good for us, but client was suffering quite a bit. The general frame rate of our client was tanking a bit, so we've been doubling down on client performance and trying to focus on that for our next.
I'm gonna call this gameplay footage too, because it's from the perspective of the character.
Before we jump into anyone else real quick here, sorry, I just wanted to note for anyone who is watching us in Twitch right now, please put questions in there. Ping Ben. He's under Ben_VRI. Ping him with any questions you might have, and we'll be adding it to like a flowing list. So we're going to go through these things, like David said, kind of get a recap, and then we're going to jump into questions we've gathered from our VIP community and also from the chat. So it will be a little bit longer of a stream today, which I don't think anyone will complain about, but we'll try to do our best to get into as many questions as we can. So sorry, JN, I interrupted you there.
Well, and then I also feel terrible because obviously I forgot to mention my boss. Ben Dean is here answering your questions in chat, like Tony said. Sorry, Ben, do you want to say hi to the community? Oh, Ben's not actually on this.
It's all good. Thanks, Dave. No need to recognize me. I love you.
You guys can see it's going to be a fun stream tonight. This is going to be a fun, little loose, little fun tonight.
That wasn't weird, was it? Me professing my love for Ronak on stream.
It is now. It wasn't, but it is now.
Yeah.
Making it as awkward as we can. There's the bean for the night.
I didn't want to ignore you. So JN, back to the serious stuff.
Yeah, what were they even talking about? The interruption got interrupted.
This year has been a lot of kind of from a narrative perspective, back end work. So Adam was hugely helpful and took the lead on getting our documentation transferred over to Confluence, which allowed us to get a lot of important templating in so that we could have information that was more scattered abroad and kind of left to the pockets of my brain and different areas, and get it in a more formalized, easily accessible location. Which took a lot of work and took a lot of patience from him, because I would come back and forth with, can we make the template do this? Can we make it do that? What about this? Because he's much more adept at production related materials like that than I was at that point in time. So that's been huge. It's made it to where even if I'm not specifically working on something, I have a great way to document it in a concise and then consistent format, which is really helpful for implementation down the road. And so I think we got a lot better at taking ideas and concepts, themes, factions, whatever it may be, and formalizing and documenting them in a consistent place that can be disseminated a lot more easily internally. So that's huge, and that's what occupies most of my time and my work, is getting back-end information documented. And so the progress that's been made on that front has been huge. Of late, it's been a lot of integrating and working with the new artists that have come on board, making sure that what we've already done previously, either with Jared or previous artists that have worked on the project, that we're keeping a consistent voice and theme, and that whatever narrative flavor that we've had, that's getting communicative all the way across the board. So yeah, for me, that's been my focus now, and also is going to be moving into the future as well. So
I'm going to go off script for a second here, and I'm just going to ask you, Jan, a question. What has been your favorite piece of lore that you've done this year?
There's lore. I knew it had to happen.
You definitely didn't prep me for this.
It's like picking your favorite kid, right? It's hard.
Well, I like my kids a lot more than my work.
He really likes his kids, though. So
yes. Let me think. Man, that would be really hard. Some of the some of the stuff with the Ascent in Wild's End, I'm really excited about what that portends throughout the world. So I would say that some of that's my favorite. And then some of the work that I've been able to do on Giants as well. I think they're getting a much fuller treatment than they have otherwise. So I would pick those two.
Awesome. All right, I'll try to stay on script because we'll see what happens if I don't.
Yep.
Adam, you want to talk a little bit about what you've been working on?
Yeah. So this has been just a very busy year. It's really no secret at this point that combat has been a major focus for us, pretty much for the best part of this year. And so that incorporates not just, things like classes and abilities, but all the back-end formulas, all the events that are occurring. I was actually really glad to see that armor class kind of did what it needed to do in this last pre-alpha. I got a lot of really positive feedback about that, and just continuing to double down on those kinds of really important stat weights, meaningful choices. That's really the direction that we want to push. And so we're just continuing to push in that direction. But because of all those changes, that's also been extrapolated, throughout the rest of the design team elsewhere in the game world. So, we've seen changes to the populations in Thronefast. We've seen changes to what our rares are, what they're dropping, how vendors fit into the schema of how you are itemizing your character. So a lot of adjustments have been made there, a lot of data work, a lot of table work, a lot of very monotonous, data entry stuff that is so critical to the game, and just really have to give a shout out to Tyler, David, the entire design team for just getting through it, because it's a lot, and there's a lot still to be done there. We also have, of course, a very robust art team now.
Robust.
We made a number of really significant hires over the summer, and so I think everyone's been able to see the fruits of that labor throughout the year. We highlighted our new character models, or the beginnings of our new character models over the summer. We've had a few more that have been completed since then, and I cannot wait for them to be shown. In part because it's the Dark Myr, and that's my race, but also because they just look so incredible. Some of the choices that we've been able to make there have really kind of pushed things that much further. Animations are coming along really nicely. Some really great concepts that, just kind of we're keeping them in our back pocket, haven't shown everything yet, but we've teased them, over the past few streams, continuing to tease them out. And just honestly, it's been so energizing seeing the team grow and seeing the work that they've been able to bring to the table really blossom and bring the game further and further to life.
Awesome. Mr. Perkins.
Yes. What is it, Ronak?
Please indulge us, Japa.
Oh, man. Well, everything everyone said is a big part of what I have loved seeing. There are so many things. If anybody remembers the massive write-up that Taham did with the kind of the year in review, patch notes, and retrospective on all the work that's been done. I mean, it's. I immediately was encouraging everyone on the team to spend time reading through it, because it's so heartening and encouraging to see how much has been done, and even that.
I will underscore that real quick, because I think that's a really good point that a lot of people overlook. They released an incredibly long list of patch notes, which probably the easiest place to find them would be, of course, on the library Pantheon, where we consolidate all the information that comes out from the devs. They originally released it in an article as part of a newsletter a month or two ago. But we have a section on the library of Pantheon.com where it's called patch notes, where it is just a running log of any patch notes that are released by Visionary Realms, dating all the way back to 2016. But starting with the most recent, and those are the most recent patch notes that they've released. Spend some time, I have also been directing some people to that, where if you even have the slightest feeling that things just aren't getting done and development is just going so slow, it can be hard to maintain the proper perspective. So having everything, well, not even everything, but having so much, like, you know, so many bullet points of things that have been accomplished is really refreshing. And so I would definitely recommend, if you have not already read through that, do it. Like, take some time and actually, you know, read and think about everything in those patch notes, because there's some important stuff in there that I think is easy to overlook otherwise.
That doesn't encapsulate every little nook and cranny of the work that's been being done. So there's so many different things to point to. The things that are right off the top of my head, even just thinking chronologically, are the cave lighting that we've gotten in recently. So that's something that Kyle has been working on. And as you all know, darkness and kind of the immersive nature of darkness and lighting and things like that is something we really want to lead into. And now Kyle has set the system up to where when you enter into a cave, based on how deep into the cave you go, the light is going to get darker and darker until you're completely inside the cave and there's no light except for the light that you've brought in.
That's pretty cool.
Torches or things like that. So it's a huge step forward for just the immersion factor of the game world and how immersive and kind of creepy the caves can feel once you start moving into it. I have to point to some of the flora that's been being worked on recently. One of our new artists, Esther, is just absolutely phenomenal at creating flora. And so some of the new grass that she's created and the new ground flora, the trees, you're going to start seeing a lot of that actual, concepted flora coming to life here very shortly. And the impact that it's having on the
not soon.
Just the feel of the zones, the look of the zones is absolutely incredible. And for me personally, it's been a lot of being able to get into some world building again. A lot of people probably don't know that I do some of that. I'm not a modeler. I think I've said before, I don't create the Legos, but I build with them. And so it's been really fun being able to kind of get in the trenches a little bit with some of our other environment artists and be able to do some world building, which I've really enjoyed. And with that comes, the joy of ideating a little bit with content and what NPCs exist here and, what's kind of the general context and story of this area. So it's fun to be able to kind of wade into that here and there. But yeah, I can't say enough about all the work that everybody's been doing and can't wait for us to get our testers in there soon so they can start tearing it all up.
I think
Reasonable person says, I can see people being upset that it'll be too dark. Which, like, I can see that too, no pun intended. But I think that's kind of like ridiculous. I think that's kind of an odd thing to say. If you are truly looking to immerse yourself in a world, if you want a virtual world, as opposed to a game, your ability to see is a big part of that. Like, if you just want, the theme park MMO that feels very gamified, then, that's one thing. But I mean, lighting is such a huge part of the immersion factor, including, the full spectrum and even getting to a point where you can barely see. Like, there's something very primal about the tension of not being able to see that far in front of you, and not knowing, like, what's around the next corner, what lingers in the dark, what, lurks that's gonna jump out at you. Now, I mean, it's worth pointing out that it is crucial to design with things like that in mind. I mean, you have to provide tools to the player to overcome darkness, whether that be something as mundane as a torch or spells or whatever the case may be. you know, like if it's too dark, just bring a freaking torch. Like it's pretty common sense. Like, and you know, it's not that hard. And if you can't see as far as you would like, well, that's part of the game. And now again, providing that you know, they don't put things in that would just be bad design, like you know, if the torch really doesn't allow you to see far enough, and you know, you're constantly getting aggroed by these things and they're killing you without you even having a chance to respond, you know, if that's too prevalent, then that's not fun. Like I said, it comes down to really the, you know, most gameplay aspects can boil it down to the game provides you with a problem or a question. You know, they pose a question and you as the player have the tools and the resources to respond to that question. But how you do that is up to you. And that's what makes games like this interesting. Like trying to just ask them to just eliminate these obstacles just undermines like a huge part of why people play games like this. So it will be interesting to see, you know, not only how far the developers take the darkness, even natural darkness. They've also said, you know, talked about supernatural darkness as well. You get these fractures, which go beyond natural darkness and things like torches can't even overcome, you know, and it's literally like pitch black. Now with fractures comes, you know, different types of tools like artifacts that you would need to, you know, that are more rare that you would need to acquire to answer those questions that the environment poses to you. So, you know, it might not be as just simple as just buying like an 8 copper torch from a merchant and being able to go in there. You might have to come up with another way, but at least there is a way, you know. If there are some areas that you just can't navigate yet because you don't have maybe the particular artifact that overcomes that supernatural darkness, you know, and it's just literally not safe for you to explore there because it's pitch black, that's fine. Again, like that gives you something to work toward. You'd be like, okay, I'm not ready for this area yet. Fortunately, there's tons of other areas I can go to. I'll keep this area in mind when I do get that artifact that will help me to see in this area. That's just another, you know, more kind of immersive way that they can put up these roadblocks that give you things to work toward. Like that's all very normal, very good, healthy part of virtual worlds like this. So yeah, so it will be interesting to see how far they take it and how people react to that, you know, because it is something that is not super common in MMOs these days. And so, you know, will people embrace that? Or, you know, will they at least get it? Like get the, okay, you know, this is, it's difficult, but it's like interesting, you know, that I think will be kind of a fine line that they need to find. Yeah, Oren, good point about preparing what you're diving into. That is an underlying theme. If you're going into a cave, it's going to be dark. What do we need? Exactly. You know, and that's just a good, you know, that's a good skill to ingrain in your players, like, because people like, again, most people, I should say, it's very satisfying to have to think like that because it applies to real life too. Like we think like that all the time, whether we realize it or not. Like I've used the example before, like you're going for a camping trip, you got to think what sort of environment am I going to be in, and what sort of things should I bring so that I'm not miserable there, you know? So whether it be, you know, darkness, bring a flashlight. We've got climates in Pantheon, frigid, scorching, toxic, anaerobic, wind shear, and I should not have listed these off because I knew I was going to forget one. Oh, now I got to do it. Frigid, scorching, toxic, anaerobic, wind shear, pressure. That's the 6th one. Okay, if I'm going to be going into a frigid climate, what sort of, if I'm camping and I know it's going to be cold, bring a sweatshirt. That sort of thing. Even just little things like that can be very satisfying when done right. So it makes sense when you look at that is a core philosophy for how Pantheon is designed from the ground up.
And personally seeing all the new artists come in and their immediate impact on everything has been so great, and seeing all of the stuff actually being placed into the world now is amazing. So we're gonna go ahead and take some questions now. We had some questions from the VIPs to start. Tony, I'm not touching this one with a 10-foot pole. I'll let I'll let you handle the first one.
I'm ready. So, so thank you, David. Just want to give a big shout out to our VIP community. We sourced them a little bit early, just gave them a couple minutes to get some questions in to start it, but we're already grabbing a lot of great questions from the chat, so keep them coming, and Ben will get those all set up, and so we can go through those tonight. So the first question, we're going to come out hard, as David just said. We're going to throw this to Japa and to Tejo. But Japa, you can start this, but it's been a big discussion. The question was, when is the co-stream? We've obviously seen Co sort of put a tweet out there about it, and it's been a big discussion within our community, from our VIPs all the way through our community. So I'm going to hand that over to you to go ahead and jump into, and Adam, feel free to jump in as well.
Yeah, well, to keep it as simple as possible, first of all, we are just as excited as you all are for Code to be able to stream the game. The key is we want him to be able to stream it in the context of an actual pre-alpha session. We want him to stream it in a way that is not curated, so that he can just naturally play the game as he sees fit, alongside other players who are also playing the game. We have, one of the best parts for us to observe is the pre-alpha sessions that we have, and the testing sessions where our community can actually get in and play the game, and it is such a positive experience. Not that there aren't warts and issues, that obviously in testing we find, but the magic of Pantheon is there. And so the stage that we're at with what we've shown historically is that it's really time to let Pantheon start speaking for itself as much as possible. And back at the end of last year, when I mentioned this being kind of the year of imminence, that's a lot of what I had in mind, is that looking at the work that we would be accomplishing over this coming year was the heart of that, was getting us to the point where we need to start showing the game more. That's what our goal is. That's what our desire is. We want to have our testers in more often. We've communicated that consistently, and that remains our goal. But one of the most important things is that we let Pantheon really stand on its own and speak for itself. And there's really no better way to do that than just let people naturally play. And we've done that with our VIP testers, and it's been phenomenal. But we've not yet done that in a way that is as public facing as something like a co-stream would be. So that being said, and Kyle actually hit on it when he gave his update, which is, while we were able to support, a little bit over 500 players at once, which is an absolutely phenomenal feat for us, and speaks really highly of what Vinyl's capable of. And that's over 500 players at once in the same area, not spread out across an entire game world, but really within one zone, and that zone, our zones being pretty large, this is all within kind of one concentrated area. And while we were able to achieve stability with that many players, there were still some issues that we found with the network culling, and some things that weren't fundamental problems with the networking, but more like dials and things that needed to be tuned and tweaked. But not only that, we also were not happy with the performance of the game as far as just the the FPS and the graphical memory that was being overutilized. And so what we've been doing is really diving into some of these very important optimizations, because when we do, allow Ko to do this kind of uncurated natural gameplay stream, we want to make sure that these things are resolved, that the performance is where it needs to be. And that's what we're working on. So as soon as we get that dialed in, which we're working on, then that's when we're going to be looking to make that happen.
Okay, so I got some things to say about this, because the tweet that they were referring to, Ko is actually replying to one of my threads on Twitter when he said that. Before I get into that though, so Reasonable Person says, I'm curious if the Ko stream will coincide with another pre-alpha if they don't want it to be curated, or if he'll have a server to himself along with some VIPs or something. The entire point of this, of everything that Joppa just said, was that the intention is for Ko to stream during a pre-alpha session, just among, those hundreds of other players, and organically just let him loose in a pre-alpha session and just see what happens. Because that would be huge, but it's also very risky, because if they have any sort of like server issues or anything, then and the servers crash on co-stream, that's not a very good look, and so they need to make sure that it's ready, and that's what Joppa is talking about here. In fact, I'm pretty sure he said that specifically. I'll go back. I want to go back here to the beginning of his.
Now we had
the beginning of Joppa's answer.
We are just as excited. The key is we want him to be able to stream it in the context of an actual pre-alpha session. We want him to stream it in a way that is not curated, so that he can just naturally play the game as he sees fit, alongside other players who are also playing the game.
So that's why, there is a lot hanging on this stream, because, that's something that they have never done before. Now Ko has streamed during a pre-alpha session. I will say that in 2018 he did that. But he streamed with the developers in his group. And it felt more kind of curated, because you have the developers in the group, and they all, they know the game, they know what's around the next corner, they know how to overcome the encounters, and they're talking their spiels about the game, maybe directing him in certain areas where they want to go sometimes. That is very different than just literally letting Ko log in, no developers in voice chat, just let him play the game. And he logs in with the hundreds of other pre-alpha testers that are already in there, and he, has to find a group and play with these other people who, don't know the game as well as the developers do, and see how it goes. I mean, that would be massive, for how people perceive the game. Like for the many people who have not actually had a chance to play the game firsthand and test the game, their perception of what Pantheon is going to be very different if they've only seen these very curated streams. It's very, very clear to me from having kind of like ridden that line and like seeing, watching the streams from the community side, but then also having my own opportunities on the inside to play Pantheon. Like, I have to keep in mind that having actual hands-on experience with the game just really changes the entire way that you feel about the game and the project as a whole. So I very much want Ko's audience and the wider community to to see more of what it's like, even if it is, indirectly through Ko. Ko can kind of, still you give them a taste of what that's like, though. What does it look like to have when somebody actually just logs in and just plays Pantheon because it's a real game? That's a big deal. But again, it needs to be smooth, and it needs to be good. And that the devs have to cover all their bases because they don't know what Ko's going to do or where he's going to go. What are the other players going to do? What's it going to be like? Is the server going to crash? Even in the curated streams that they've done, there's still sometimes things that go wrong, and that's even when they do, dating back, a few years, like 2016, 2017, 2018. They talked about how they would specifically plan out their streams and like where they were gonna go. Okay, we're gonna start in Avendir's Pass, and we're gonna move into the Hangor region, and then we're gonna go to Amber Fate, or okay, we're gonna start in South Sail Peninsula, and we're gonna go to the Tower of the Reckless Magician. And a lot of time was spent preparing those areas for the stream, working out the bugs, improving the art assets in that region, to make the stream as presentable as possible, because they're doing these streams to attract more pledges and investors and publishers and things like that. So they did that for years, really trying to put their best foot forward. And keep in mind too that is one of the ways that Pantheon's development varies greatly from if you had a development that was funded from a publisher on day one. If you have full funding on day one from a publisher, you don't need to spend all this time, setting up these streams and how you're gonna, present the game to your potential investors, because you already have the investments, you already have the funding, and so you can just go to work and develop things more linearly. Whereas when you have a crowdfunded MMO development like this, it's not nearly as linear. They have to stop, put departments essentially on hold to shift their attention over to an upcoming stream, and really just laser focus on making sure that stream is as good as it can be, so that it has the best chance at bringing in pledges and investments and stuff, just to keep the project afloat. Like, it's a completely different mindset and process that they had to go through for years, and still are to some degree. Now, as things have been built up and fleshed out, obviously, as we can see, they don't have to meticulously prepare those streams as much as they used to, but still, like, this would be kind of like a breakout moment, when they can just say, like, contrary to common belief, Pantheon is a game that is playable, and here's somebody just playing it because it's a real game. So I can't fault them for wanting to make sure, they've got the server as solid as it absolutely can be, and the client performance as solid as it can be, and so that they can, cross their fingers and hope it goes well. Because if it does go well, that will be a big deal. So I can't fault them for that. I can fault them for still kind of giving dates. And now November is not over yet, but obviously the undertones here is that it seems like there won't be a pre-alpha test this month. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. Now, there's a couple of things to break down here. maybe there will be a pre-alpha test this month, but it won't be the one that co-streams during. That is certainly a possibility, because you remember in the last producer's letter, they did say that there was they were planning on doing another pre-alpha test in November. They're trying to ramp up the frequency of pre-alpha tests. They just did one in October, trying to do another one in November. Normally they give 2 weeks heads up for pre-alpha tests, which would 2 weeks from now is the 25th of November. So then you're talking like Thanksgiving weekend. So if it wasn't announced in this stream and it isn't announced in the next few days, it's probably unlikely to happen this month. Maybe. But so and if it doesn't, if there is no pre-alpha test, let's just say there is no pre-alpha test in November. It would, sure, it's unfortunate, but it would be, it would be more disappointing because they set that expectation. And I don't know how many times they said we're not going to give dates until we're 100% sure, and then they're still giving these kind of like estimate windows where it's like, we hope to have the next one in November. It's like, just don't say anything unless you have a specific date. They keep shooting themselves in the foot with that, and I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, I get that there's pressure. People are excited. They want to get into the game. People are constantly asking, when's the next one? When's the next one? But floating these dates around is probably causing them more harm than good. Now, that's separate. I want to differentiate that from CoCarnage, who was the one that set the expectation for his stream happening in November. Let me pull up his tweet just so you can see what I'm talking about. And I want to clarify too that CoCarnage is not Visionary Realms. They're two separate entities. Even though Co is now an investor in Pantheon, he's still, he's his own dude, and he does what he wants to do and says what he wants to say, and that's fine. He has the right to do that. So okay, this was on a thread that I posted. It was talking about something else, but anyway, somebody asked, I thought Co was going to do a stream in September. I've been out of the loop. Any word on that? So, which is actually, that's also true. I almost forgot about this. In July, when Co first announced that he was an investor in Pantheon, he said, in September, I'm going to be streaming gameplay of it. That obviously didn't happen. Again, due to the vinyl functionality still kind of being worked out. That test that he was supposed to stream during got pushed back to October. That test did happen in October, but he didn't stream it, which is very wise. It's baffling that there was ever even a discussion about him streaming the first test session after vinyl came online, because obviously you want to have there's so many massive changes that have come online before that pre-alpha test. Not just vinyl, but you got the HDRP implementation. There had been so much time in between the October test and the previous test that it should have just been well established that there wasn't going to be any streaming during that, because you got to expect that there's going to be some bugs and stuff that need to be worked out first before they put it in front of an audience. So, yeah, I don't know why necessarily Code jumped the gun and saying that he was gonna be streaming that next session, because that obviously didn't happen. And then he goes again and says shooting for mid-November from the devs, last I heard, for his stream during the next pre-alpha test session. Obviously, we're pretty much coming up on mid-November. We know that it's not going to be happening mid-November, maybe late November in best case scenario, but still, I wouldn't even hold my breath for that. I would set the expectations real low, stop naming months, and just let it happen. And when it happens, people will be pleasantly surprised. It's not that, it can't be that far around the corner that they need to be floating these dates, because we've seen time and time again over the years, people will latch on to that and they will hold you to that to the T. So it'll save themselves a lot of headache if they just cut that out. I don't know, and I don't want to be too hard on Code, because I don't know if he's like how familiar he is with VR's history of floating dates that they don't meet. I don't know if he really has a full appreciation for how sensitive the community is to things like that. So again, he's not Visionary Realms. I don't want to rag on him too hard. I just want to point this out as an example, maybe something that they can keep in mind moving forward, to just avoid the headache altogether and just let it happen, because it will happen. And the less they try to hype it up, the better actually it will be when the time does come. So anyway, that's my spiel on that. How are we doing on bingo? I'm pretty close. I'm one away in multiple directions. Have they really not said this month at all? Okay, I'm gonna go back, because I feel like Minus, in asking this question to Joppa, he must have said something about a stream this month, right?
At Pantheon, what we do are...
I'm going to go back, double check.
Contact.
Holy
Key
cow.
is we want him...
We are only 15 minutes into this stream, folks. Holy cow.
First of all...
Joppa, you can...
I want to make sure we don't miss anything here, though. Because they've been talking about...
we're going to come out hard.
They've been talking so much about this year that they haven't really said this month.
As David just said, we're going to throw this to Joppa and to Tejo. But Joppa, you can start this. But, it's been a big discussion. The question was, when is the co-stream? We've obviously seen Co sort of put a tweet out there about it. And it's been a big discussion within our community, from our VIPs all the way through our community. So I'm going to hand that over to you to go ahead and jump into. And Adam, feel free to jump in as well.
He didn't say it. Okay. Oh, well. And Thorndeep says, I can see why Co would be excited for this to happen as well. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. I'm sure he is. I would be too if I was in his position. And that's why I'm not giving him a hard time, because, I think it's very natural. If you're excited for something, you want to talk about it. You want to talk about when it's going to be happening. And it takes a lot to resist that urge, for sure. It's important. It's important because, things come up, and, if we've seen time and time again that the lower the expectations are, the better, because then people will just be pleasantly surprised.
Resolve. So it's
the key thing is
Okay, that was the end of Joppa's. That was the end of Joppa's answer. Now we're gonna get into hear what Tahome has to say about it. Hopefully, I didn't speak too soon about anything. Let's hear what he has to say.
Do you want to add anything to that, Adam?
I think that covered it pretty robustly. I think the only other thing that I would say is that the key thing is we need to validate that all of these improvements that we're looking to make to performance, and I should actually clarify that we have made, and we need to validate that they are going to work at scale in an actual
there's scale, there's bingo.
So once that validation is complete, that's going to be our signal that yes, we can move forward with the co-stream.
I'm going for a full card this time.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to David, because I know we gave Ben the shout out that he's going to be taking questions, but we do also have moderators that are in the chat. You'll see the sword by their name. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's helping moderate, helping answer some of the questions and things that are known, as well as, getting anybody help that they need. So David, I'll toss it over to you for the next one.
Yeah. This question's for CP. what will be different about 2023 that will better capture the eminence talked about going into 2022?
Good questions.
Well, kind of like I was just mentioning, one of the biggest goals that we have internally, other than our development milestones, is to reach the point where we are able to get our VIP testing community in more regularly. And I understand the last time that I talked about this, there was some frustration in response to those statements because it made it sound like, we were kind of on the cusp of that starting to happen. And of course it didn't happen immediately. And we've had one pre-alpha test, which was in September. And we're, now getting close to, getting to the point where we're ready to do the next one. So I think the question on everyone's mind is, okay, if that's the case, then when? And, the goal that we have, is once we do when we're ready for this next pre-alpha test, our hope is that the stability and the performance is going to be at a point where we truly are then able to start scheduling these more regularly. Whether that's going to be, twice a month, whether that's going to be once a month, once every couple of months, we will let you know when we know. But we really are getting to that point, and that's a big part of the eminence, because Pantheon being able to exist as, in that very rudimentary sense, a product, if you will. I mean, that's a big part of the value that comes with the VIP pledge, is access to the game. And so getting the game to the point where that access can be more consistent is one of the top priorities that we have right now. And we're close.
Awesome. So speaking on that, kind of like another question that came up from the chat, it's kind of funny. So they're wondering, this year your term was Eminence. Do you have a term for 2023 that you want to throw out there? What might it be?
It's too early. That's a next month thing.
Okay.
Oh, next month.
We can expect an important word next month coming out.
Yeah, 2023 is going to be a big year.
All right. I love it.
There's a word to match.
So we kind of answered this slightly.
These are good
Adam,
questions. I'm enjoying
talk a
this.
little bit more about the next PA and if we've scheduled it internally yet.
We have a target date. I'm not going to share what the target date is, but it is. I think the last stream I mentioned that the test would be sooner than people would have expected. I think we're kind of on the cusp of that. So as soon as we have it locked in, we will communicate it.
That's still such a weird way to phrase it.
Uh-oh. He said it. Like, Joppa's laughing. Awesome. So throwing this over to Kyle, if you could talk a little bit about the post-vinyl functionalities, like where we are on some of those. And I think they're referring to the alpha roadmap where there's some of that was listed. Has any of that stuff started, or is there progress? What's sort of the direction you're at on that?
Some of it has been started and some of it has not. It's mostly down to the last PA. We've just been focused mostly on bug fixing and client performance. So vinyl was in a pretty decent state at the end of the last PA after a couple of hot fixes that we did live to fix some of the culling and stuff like that. It landed in a pretty decent spot. So we've just been doubling down on client performance. We'll revisit the post-final functionalities probably after this next PA, if I had to guess.
Awesome. Thanks, Cal.
Yep.
Oh, David, you got a good one coming up here. Everybody get ready in chat.
So, JN, first of all, the question is, can you clarify the official pronunciation of Seva? So, obviously, asking the question will already answer the question. Asking the question will answer the question. I want to talk about a little bit more about how this even became a thing.
Oh yeah, that's what I want to know.
So, I make up a lot of words, a lot of names, and there are times where certain members of the team will ask for the proper pronunciation. And what is best to do in that instance is to just hop on a call. And for me, at least, is not to try to type it out phonetically.
Oh my God.
Sometimes that goes spectacularly poorly. and there was just miscommunication on several, and I take full responsibility for that. I came clean on a tweet earlier this week, and all blame is on me. I'll
take all the blame. You could. There's certain members of this team that
well,
blame.
if I take all the blame, then everyone else rushes to defend me. So this is subtle.
I'm not defending you.
Yeah.
I just want to.
No,
one member of the team is caught in my tricks.
I needed to see it in writing. I didn't see it, but I could not understand what could have been sent through in text phonetically to lead to Seville being pronounced as Saval. I just couldn't get. I couldn't. So I still haven't seen that, by the way, either. So I'm holding you to that. I want to see the text message with the pronunciation spelled out there. I need to know.
There are things that will never see the light of day. This is going to go down the black hole of development.
It will be a brain worm that will never cease if I cannot see.
Yeah, it's
how that happened.
Right.
Because to me, it's as easy as like, it sounds like devil.
Several like devil.
It sounds like rebel.
Yeah, that would have been, in retrospect, it's very easy for you
What
to
did
come
you
in now.
type in response?
Very easy now to say, hey, you should have done this, guy.
That's such a Sabal. That's such a. I mean, how do you get that without like a double A or like a UHL kind of?
It was AWWLE, like everybody in the chat expects it to be.
Oh my goodness!
I'll just say that some of the charm of prior games has been trying to, people have different pronunciations of cities or towns or whatever, and we've talked about this a little bit. So
like Felweath.
Yeah, I don't.
The thing to keep in mind is so Joppa and JN have literally been friends like since childhood. So, I mean, you can't script this type of banter. It's so good. Jintaki says, I would fly cross country for a pub meet. Done that and worth it. Hanging out with the devs, good times.
I don't see why we should be any different.
Well, here's the best part. This was an easy slam dunk for anyone on this to just say, well, Minus never pronounces anything right. And I'm pretty sure the community is probably like, well, that's definitely Minus's fault. But in my defense, not throwing anyone under the bus, I have learned my lesson about pronouncing, even though I still mess up one of our races. And I did ask for phonetic. So I just want to make sure everyone knows.
And yet, here we are.
Here we are. Hey.
Okay.
It's Seville. It's Seville, just like devil with an S. And
they need
and
to.
The mystery's ended.
They need to incorporate an Easter egg somehow for that.
Actually,
like an NPC in Seville Manor, who's like named Saval, like SEVAWL or something. We need to immortalize this somehow.
Text somewhere. It'll be in game somewhere. I'll put the what I sent Minus in chat as for the phonetic explanation.
Please.
I think there should be.
Just be sure to include Mur in that as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there should be a tome of mispronunciations.
Well, that's the thing is we'll have a document or something like that in game. That there's two NPCs. One of them walks up and says that's gibberish, and the other one says, "Oh, I understand every word of it." And it'll just be the poor phonetics of every race and name, and we'll illustrate the full player base with just two characters.
And that NPC will be named Minus.
What's the book? What's the book in Devayer that's kind of like the tome of like the ancient happenings of things? What's that called?
I don't remember the title.
The Avaloth?
Oh, the Book of the Avail. Yeah, that's that's for the human pantheon.
Right, but I'm just saying that the Tome of the Mist, because isn't nearby? Isn't there a person that actually like turned themselves into a book on the floor?
Wait, what?
I don't know. Did you put somebody in? Is this an NPC that you've created?
There's a tome on the ground near that, and you start reading through it, and you realize that it's a person that's turned themselves into a book. And I'm just thinking, in that room with such two majestic specimens of literature, I think a book of mispronunciations would be very fitting.
Very book of
You guys wanted beans. There you go.
Oh my god!
I think we have a lot of questions to get through.
Several I think they're creating more questions than answers at this point. What the heck?
Several. No.
This
Just
is what people want. They want to see this. This is good. We're having fun tonight.
You are. Go ahead.
So yeah. No, I'm kidding. So Adam, for Alpha, we have the Alpha roadmap. There's just been some questions about like what we're looking for like a final zone count for Alpha. I know we have some stuff listed in there, but can you clarify that at all?
Well, there are no zones anymore. It's seamless.
So I'm going to give something of a non-answer here. I'm not going to give an actual number. The answer is yes, we do have a final zone count. But I want to give a little bit of clarity here. So, Pantheon is a large project, and we are a small and very agile team, and a lot of us wear a lot of different hats. So what we look at for our alpha target, we have a target for the team as it exists today. We have a target for a team that we would like to have. And the two are not necessarily the same, right? So we know what we're building towards. We know what our goal is. Depending on what happens, as time goes on and, additional sources of funding are identified, there is a possibility that that zone list may expand. There's also a possibility that the zone list may further contract. So at the moment, I'm not going to share what that target is, but I will say that when it comes to the roadmap, I think I've talked about this a little bit with the VIP community, that I do want to make some improvements to that. I know that it's, currently just a list of some loose targets without a whole lot of clarity of what the progress is or what the milestones are along the way. So it's something that, along with many other things, is competing for time and attention. But I know that it's very important to people. So I don't quite know when that's going to be updated, but I will update it when I'm able to.
And I think that's a
Grizzly, I know I'm a little bit late, but I just noticed that you donated $50, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. He says, Happy Christmas, Baz. And Happy Christmas to you as well. That's awesome. And Lauren Deep says, definitely hoping we get a Pantheon for release. Oh, there's no doubt about that. The devs have already had 2 community meetups so far. One at TwitchCon and one at PAX East. Both of the 2 conventions that they've had a booth at, they've had community get-togethers. And so, as far as like a Pantheon like at launch, Pantheon, like when I think of a Pantheon, it's like an entire like convention like dedicated to Pantheon, which would be awesome. And I think that there's a very high likelihood of that. I don't know if it will, if they'll have like their like an entire like venue to themselves, like a fanfare sort of thing. Maybe, if they've got the funding for it, there's no doubt that I think they've even talked about in the past that that's certainly something they would like to do, of course. But if not that, then some sort of just meet up at some other venue like they've done. Like they've at TwitchCon, it was just in like the back room of a bar. That was their first convention appearance, and that was pretty low key. It was still really fun, but it was just like at like a pretty small room at a bar. There was a handful of devs there. People just hanging out, chatting. PAX East was their next convention, and that community meetup was a little bit more built up. They had a bigger space. It was at like a Irish pub in Boston that had kind of like an event space as part of it, and it was awesome because it was very like medieval themed. Like there were axes and shields on the wall and like stone walls and stuff. And it was a bigger space and there was more people there. So you could already tell even just the year from 2017 to 2018, that meetup got sizably bigger. So I'm really not worried at all about the chances of a big community meetup when time finally comes. I mean, when Pantheon launches, it's an understatement to say that that's a big deal. Like that is something with all that they've had to go through to reach the finish line for this project, like that's something that everybody needs to celebrate for sure. So you will see me there, no doubt.
A good opportunity to remind people that Pantheon is a crowdfunded game, and that if you want to see us reach these goals a little quicker, head on over to pantheonmmo.com and hit the pledge page. So this question will be, it can be for whoever really wants to answer it, but how much progress have you guys had with implementing the new character models in the game client?
So we have the character models ready. They're technically in the client, but they have not been wired in to replace the existing models yet. And primarily that's just a competition for programming allocation. And as Kyle had mentioned, right now our emphasis is on performance and improving some of the responses out of pre-alpha. But it's on the list as soon as we can squeeze it in, which is pretty much after this next push.
Awesome. Very cool to hear. Okay, so this is sort of for Kyle or Adam, but when we're talking about that last PA session, how has that helped, or how much has that helped in developing or evolving vinyl in becoming that, and obviously it is the solution for our game. But what was really gathered from that? Like, take us into that moment, especially Kyle, you've spent so much time on vinyl. Take us into that moment on seeing it go, the hot fixes, and like where you left that.
Yeah, I was very happy with the last PA actually. Having that many people in the same area is tough on a modern engine, let alone, Unity, where we're locked in. So the hotfixes that we got in were really all that was needed to stabilize things as far as I'm concerned. The library performed exceptionally well for what we were throwing at it. We haven't really had to focus on vinyl since then, specifically. But there's been a few additions here and there for NPC updates that we did, and how we allow NPCs to go to sleep when nobody is around. We sort of randomized that a bit, so you can't just walk away from an NPC and walk back up to them and expect them to be in the same spot anymore, stuff like that. So there's been some small little gameplay specific changes that we've made to vinyl, but at its core, it held up very, very well. It's really just gameplay features that we need to implement on top of it now, not so much the library itself.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I think community definitely might be a little interested in that. This question's for JN. What is the nature of magic/wizards in Terminus, lore-wise? Are they rare? Do most die? Are seasoned ones at all numerous?
So I think the heart of this question is it's a little bit asking, how widespread will they be? And we get questions like this sometimes with just, are there player equivalents to player character classes throughout the world? And Magic, I think, because it's so unique to our world, stands out amongst the roster of classes. And I understand that, but the uniqueness to me needs to be thought of more like in a world where magic is real and magic is useful and magic is ubiquitous. And so there is a curve progression wise on your ability to wield magic and the arcane and to do things beyond what someone can do in our world. But for me, the goal is to try to weave these things in as naturally and consistently throughout the world, so that you would have a normal person who maybe has learned a spell, or maybe there's their family knows a handful of things that they use to either cause crops to grow more consistently, or cause a breeze to blow in their merchant ships more consistently, and they're able to control for some of these variables and cause things to work better on their behalf, or obviously for nefarious means as well. So I wouldn't think of them as like Gandalfs. Like someone on that level obviously would be more rare. But the ability to wield magic or to use runes we're living in a world that is fantastical to us, but to itself is self-affirming and real and consistent. And so, yes, they die. Yes, they would, if they're really powerful, be elevated. But also, if they have, something else that is useful, whether that's wisdom, perspective, a shaman might be extremely useful to someone who's trying to figure out what the future holds and what the past has done, and trying to learn from that. So I hope that we don't take something that is unique to our world and only elevate that and then say, oh, it's different and special to us, therefore it's different and special in this world. But instead we're able to weave through a world that, again, is self-affirming in its what's real for it and what's true for it. There, it's kind of a narrative emphasis of mine, is to make sure that we've got consistency there, because we could theoretically do whatever we wanted whenever we wanted, and that's not helpful. I think of it as channeling water, where if you have just water running open all the time, you have a bog. But as soon as you put boundaries on it, you have a river or a lake, and these are much more useful. Life can dwell there, but a bog, almost nothing can live in. And so it's good to have boundaries and limitations there. And hopefully I answered the question to some degree. But yeah, they're going to live, they're going to die, they're going to be valued just like any other person would be in our world.
Awesome. I think bringing up the Gandalf part was kind of like maybe where that question came from, right? Like really rare. And yeah, that's perfect. So, I get to ask a class question. Exciting. So this is for Joppa or Adam. I know you're both heavy in the classes there. So big question. What's the status of the Paladin and Warrior? And what class could we perceive coming next?
So again, I'm going to extrapolate this a little bit, because I think it's important for, people who look at the game and ask, where is the class that I'm looking for? When is the next class coming online? Why haven't we seen a new class yet? It's helpful to have some context about why we're still focused on the classes that we are. So as far as the status of the Paladin and the Warrior go, both are what I would call partially implemented. So they exist. If we wanted to create one, we have the ability to do that. They're wired into unique resource pools. They do have some abilities wired in. They're, of course, linked to itemization. So all of that is supported. The missing piece for them and for many of our classes is just the abilities, right? And having the abilities in there, tuned, ready to go. And so the focus right now is on making sure that all of our abilities feel really good. And as I mentioned earlier, this year, a huge focus was our combat, a huge focus on the back-end formulas, on the feeling, the pacing, the numbers, making sure that when you hit a button, it feels good, making sure that your resources feel meaningful. And even, as in light of the fact that we just showed this off in the last PA, we're already responding to that. And so we want to make sure that before we have hundreds of abilities that need to be tuned, that we really make sure that the numbers feel good. Once that's done, it's very easy to extrapolate that through the ability tool that we have and propagate as many different abilities as we need to. But it's going to be a lot more cumbersome to do that across hundreds of abilities as opposed to doing it for the select few that we're currently using just to do our tuning and balance. So all that being said, the next class on deck is the Warrior. That is still kind of pending because we are still digging deep into some of those just core combat elements that we still want to refine and make sure that we get feeling good. We're definitely feeling a lot better about it, today, even just relative to that last pre-alpha. So I'm going to use the word soon again. But again, the main focus is getting that core combat feeling and all of our kind of initial abilities feeling the way that we want them to. And that's going to be the emphasis of this next pre-alpha.
Yeah, I'll just add very quickly on top of that it's also extends into the itemization realm as well. That a smaller subset of classes that we're focusing on working on. Not only are we able to dial in the numbers related to the specific combat aspects of that class, the balance, the abilities, just being disciplined to do that and bring that to a good place, but it also allows us to get a good handle on itemization as well. the progression of the characters, the progression in their power, and just the kind of coverage that we have and the different avenues of acquisition that we have in place. So it all is benefited by keeping that group of things that we're working deeply on smaller for now until we get all those things dialed in where we want them. And then, as Adam said, it's much easier to extrapolate that out.
So CP, I have a question. It's kind of more for newer community members. It's something we've kind of talked about before, but maybe worth bringing up again for the new people. Will party compositions be enforced? Can you enter a dungeon? Like, you can't enter a dungeon unless you have 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 to 3 DPS kind of thing.
Will that be enforced? No, you won't be forced to have any particular composition. In fact, that's our hope, is to see a lot of creative decisions being made and, you know, how you attempt to tackle different forms of content. But yeah, never forcing any kind of composition like that.
Actually, there's something interesting in that question because it is very reminiscent of what you see in like heavily instanced MMOs, where you have to queue into a dungeon and you're queuing with a set party, and that's the only group that you're going in with, and so you have that specific spread of roles. And so I just want to take this moment too to highlight that one of the really fundamental things that we did, as part of these combat updates that I'm continuing to talk about, is we looked back to those classic MMOs, to the EverQuests and the Final Fantasy 11s, the Anarchy Onlines of the gaming world. And we recognized that there was a flexibility in, you didn't even have these definitions between here's a normal enemy versus an elite enemy, right? You could go into a dungeon as a solo player amidst all the other players that were in there. And if you were powerful enough, if you were skilled enough, you could still be successful. And we wanted to make sure that we brought that back through Pantheon, that we weren't creating this hard dividing line between I can only go in with a group and my only way to be successful is with a group, or to be immensely overpowered. But give people the opportunity to, sneak their way in, find a good camp, figure out, can I solo this thing? Can I chase this rare item without needing to rely on others? So I'm excited about it.
It makes me tingly.
Yeah.
It's an exciting thing. It's well said.
Yeah, I'm glad he said that, because I was literally just about to point that out, that like the way that question was phrased is like under the assumption that there will be instancing. Like, how would you enforce group composition in an open world? So yes, not only, I'm surprised they didn't use the word interdependence. I mean, that was the time. If you're going to be talking about, group makeup and class roles and stuff, not only are those class roles important to Pantheon, but it's also a open world, and also now a seamless open world. So yeah, I mean, that you're, by answering that question, you kind of answer multiple other big questions too at the same time about really like what Pantheon is. I can't, if that's somebody who maybe just recently heard about Pantheon, can't blame them for asking. I think, it's a good question. It's an important question. It's just funny how I think a lot of people have become so accustomed to instanced MMOs that they almost just kind of operate under the assumption that any new MMO is going to be like that too. Of course everything is going to be instanced. So, yeah, I love hearing about, people who still have so much to learn about Pantheon, or maybe just recently finding out about it. 'Cause, I'm sure the vast majority of people you hear now in my chat, like, you've probably been aware of Pantheon for a while. You have a pretty solid understanding of at least the basics of it. And so from our position, it can be easy to forget that there are still so many people who have either never heard of it or know very, very little about it. And I actually love that, because again, it leaves that door open for that pleasant surprise whenever the time comes, whenever they do find find out about it, and they come in with their preconceived notions about that. Man, this is going to be some like instanced WoW clone, whatever, yada yada, whatever you want to call it. And then even just realizing, oh wait, like this is an open world. It's a seamless open world where you can solo, but you can also, have a very rewarding group experience too, and you can, really get good at having a role, or you could, experiment with just an entire group of wizards or an entire group of enchanters or whatever, and like, you kind of have that that freedom to just tackle it however you see fit, and I think that will be a pleasant surprise for a lot of people, because there are still so many people that Pantheon just has not reached yet. Despite all of the streams that they do and stuff, again, like we really, immerse ourselves in the community. It can be hard to kind of see things from another perspective, but it's like VR's marketing has like barely scratched the surface. Like the current community is still just the tip of the iceberg.
I love that. Kyle, going back to you. So we've talked a lot about the PA test, and we know we had Throne Fast running. We talked about having all those people in one area. So some of our community in the VIP were wondering, when we do add more zones that and players spread out or more people come in, what effect does having more zones have on the stability versus, since we're now, there's not going to be zone lines, we're going to be a free open world. Does that make any difference to the performance?
It'll make little to no difference. Each zone is isolated in its own process. So the fact that one zone can hold 500 players, well, it would make a difference if the overall servers that we were running were fairly underpowered and where they could only run one zone and they'd run out of memory or something like that. But we've got decently powerful servers that are spec'd to be able to run at least one copy of every zone at the max capacity. So it makes no impact. You won't feel a difference in TF if we have AVP and Wild's End and Silent Plains all active with players as well. In fact, the performance would probably be better because players would be spread out more across different zones. So there was more of a worst case scenario in this last PA, and it handled it swimmingly well.
That's awesome.
It's not a bad baseline though. I mean, because in pre-alpha, yes, if you add more zones, people are going to spread out more. But the key thing about consolidating all of the tester player base in one zone for now is that's not a bad simulation for what it would be like when you introduce alpha testers, for example. So, if they have, like, yes, they might have an entire continent available in alpha, but there will also be probably 10 times as many people in the game as there are in pre-alpha. And so, again, just rough numbers. Even if you have 10 times the space, if you have 10 times the players, then, you might have 500 people in one zone. And you need to make sure that not only the server can handle it, but then also the content. And, you also got to make sure that there's not too many like content bottlenecks. Like, what if you hit a certain level, does everybody have to be like focused on this one like camp in the zone? Because that's like the only camp that you'll get XP at that level, and people are like stepping over each other, that sort of thing. Does the content allow people to like spread out throughout the zone? So you got to keep that in mind as well. And so having 500 people in one zone, I think, is an important step toward making sure that the game is ready for alpha. Because it should go without saying that the previous network solution that they had was going to be, it had no hope against the amount of alpha testers that are signed up. It would have been a complete train wreck. So, because we know that according to Visionary Realms. As of January 2021, they already had over 8,000 people signed up for alpha. Obviously, time has passed since then. That number has certainly gone up, and there's also no doubt in my mind that when they do actually announce a date, like there are so many people that are just hanging on that and they just want to have a confirmed date. Like no more guessing. Like, yes, alpha is happening, and here's what's going to happen. That's when you're going to get a lot more people jumping on board. When it's announced, then even after alpha begins and word of mouth starts to spread and people are actually seeing it, hey, this is actually, pretty good. Assuming, it goes well, more people want to join during alpha so that they can be a part of it. And so you're easily talking, if there's already over 8,000, I mean, you're easily talking over 10,000 alpha testers when that time comes. And so if you have, maybe they'll spread people out across different servers as opposed to putting them all on one server, but still knowing that you can have 500 people in one zone, and have it go smoothly is a big deal when it comes to alpha.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
I'm gonna start shouting out some names here as we ask these questions.
Reasonable person says, do we know what they are shooting for in terms of server size? No, because I mean that's what this testing is for. Not even just throughout pre-alpha, but then also alpha as well. Tweaking maximum server population for those reasons. At that point, it's probably more of a content restriction rather than an actually like network traffic restriction with vinyl the way it is. But even if you have a server that can handle oodles and oodles of players simultaneously without breaking a sweat, like that's great. But it's still, again, you got the other side of it as well with like the content, and that even if you have 10,000 people in one zone and it's the server's just rocking and rolling and there's no lag, let's just in an ideal world, even if you do accomplish that, the content is going to suffer. People are going to be walking all over each other, and there's every NPC is just going to get killed as soon as it spawns. So yeah, the through testing, some trial and error and some feedback, that's how they will eventually later down the line settle on like what where they should put the population cap on the servers.
Nagasaki 53 wants to know, why exactly should a group take a monk as a member? What will their desirable class defining ability be for a group?
Oh, I love Chris. You're laughing already. You're smiling. I love it.
Yeah, I just love questions like this because, I mean, on some level, like we could answer them, but it's going to come down to really how the player base ultimately decides those kinds of things. I don't know that anyone. I mean, you look at a game like EverQuest, and I don't know that anyone design-wise set out to say like, this is what I want monks to always be known as. This is why I want this class to always be taken. It was the exploration that players did over time and how these things kind of naturally played out. So yeah, while there are iconic abilities and things that certain classes are going to be capable of, even the way those things are utilized, I would not say that we would be able to account for all of that. And so how classes end up becoming valued and what they end up becoming valued for, and even how that evolves over time with the work that we continue to do on these classes, change. So, I mean, I'd love for Adam to take a moment to speak to this if he has any specific thoughts, but it's just one of those questions that
Congrats,
it's difficult to answer, especially when we're talking about a specific class right now and what they will be known and valued for. I see that being a very moving, fluid, wonderfully fluid target.
Yeah, I mean, it's that really just hits the spirit of it. We're not necessarily designing with a specific key identity. I mean, obviously an identity from a lore perspective, an identity from a primary role perspective, but in terms of what defines those classes, part of the beauty of the limited action set is you kind of choose that for yourself as a skilled player. It could be that you as a player, your class defining ability is the fact that you know how to use a skill in a way that no one else does. And as Chris just mentioned, there's these opportunities for players to create their own meta, to identify the uniqueness of these classes for themselves. And for those, I actually just saw it mentioned in chat. For those who don't know, Final Fantasy XI had a ninja class that really was not intended to be a tank in any way, and yet became like the de facto tank because of its ability to stack its shadows and avoid damage. And it was just, completely different from what was intended. And yet, once that was identified, that became such a core part of the identity that it was leaned into. And we would love to see that.
And I'm going to throw a shout out to Kilson, who's in the chat helping out as well. But it's funny that you guys say that, because even before I joined the team, I played a rogue much different than Kilson likes to play a rogue. Kilson loves to do damage, and he's looking at his numbers and trying to maximize his output. And here's me sneaking around, trying to stay stealth and trying to CC and control. I mean, we've seen that in just where we were then. So I think that naturalness is awesome. It just it creates the game world, right? It's awesome. Okay, so from Bronson for Adam, what new zones are the environmental artists currently working on?
It's going to be a little bit of a disappointing answer because it's not a new zone, but we have actually consolidated our artists back into the Thronefast AVP area. And there's still, work to be done, but just honestly, it's amusing to me as I'm watching the video of our I say old now, our original HDRP stream, and knowing how far it's come since then, even until the last pre-alpha. And now, just in the past month, how far it's come from really focusing all of our artists into that region. So the plan right now is to have our artists remain focused in Thronefast and AVP, finalize those areas, and then we have a list of zones to come after that. And now I'm actually thinking to myself, what is on that list? I don't recall off the top of my head. I want to say Silent Plains. I think we're going to weave away from Wild's End for a little bit to work our way back down the continent.
It is.
Yeah. I'm glad that you have that in front of you, because I am drawing a blank.
Yep. Yeah, it's the other cool thing I want to mention that I forgot to mention at the very beginning that I'm also excited about is just having a little bit more of group oriented gameplay, kind of a dungeon light area in Thronefast that we've been wanting to build out a little bit more, that we've had the chance to do now, and something that we'll have online for the next test. But remember, these zones are massive, and there's having the artists all to bear on Thronefast means that some of the remaining POIs and places that we have concept art for, that we've been waiting and wanting to realize, the intended visuals and the intended layouts and things of some of these areas. It's really exciting to have that happening. Not to mention the fact that, there's, in so many cases, there's knock-on effects for art where we're able to use things, in other areas like Avenger's Pass, like Eastern Plains, that are all in kind of that same Thronefastian kind of aesthetic, or really have that human presence. But it's also being able to realize some of these content areas as well, that are going to continue to make a really big difference in these zones and just give these zones much more life, and longevity for players. So, yeah.
Jan, this question's from Stone to the Bone. Will you create unique and perhaps new fantasy creatures? And can you talk about any ideas or things that you have already been creating?
Yeah, Stone to the Bone. So a lot of that actually comes through the artists when they're either doing biome work, or we're trying to capture the feel of a particular zone. So like with Wild's End, there's multiple insectoid type creatures that have, besides just being large, we want to be exotic and weird and not just feel like a big bug. And so there's some recent work that Brett's done that's been really cool that, you know, like I'm not going to get into it, but just had him do a little twist on it that I want to use narratively on something that is scorpion adjacent, we'll just say. But yeah, we talk a lot about not just relying on creatures from our world to populate everything else. And when we've got placeholders, that's, you know, what we have to go with, what's available, so that we can prove out an area from a population standpoint. But as we get into continuing to create our own assets, it's a lot of fun. I mean, because we've got extremely talented people. I mean, Holly has done one that we call, she's called a Bronte turtle. And it's Adam was actually the one who started that. I'm sorry?
I meant to interrupt you just for no reason. No, I was saying I love the Bronze Turtles. I'm so excited about that.
I mean, if you want to interrupt me, just commit to it.
No.
Just like jump in.
If I did want to, I would commit to it. I didn't.
Well, you did interrupt me. It was just.
Can you tell
this is playing into the next
Anyway,
question really well.
guys.
I just really well into the next question here with you two.
Yeah, I don't think people heard that CP. CP and JN are actual really, they're friends in real life, so we don't normally treat each other like this in the workplace. Well, Tony and I do, but I don't know about
For yourself.
Yeah,
actually. And
I feel like
who's he
that
kidding?
fact is one of those things that gets mentioned all the time. It's kind of like when a famous player's son is on a team and they mention, like, every 2-3 times a game, they mention, oh, did you know he was the son of this other famous player? I feel like that is the that CP and I know each other outside of work gets mentioned a lot, but maybe not. Anyway,
I mean, I said
I'm
it
totally
earlier.
fine with him interrupting.
Guilty.
I'm used to it by now, and I interrupt him as well. I think I answered the question. I don't remember. Holly
good.
made a Bronte turtle. It was awesome. Adam was really the creative influence for it. And I can't wait to show you someday.
Awesome. So this really ties into this next question, great, and it's from Path MD. It's, who brings the most comic relief to the workplace? Please vary your responses, have fun, and
No,
give
I don't think you're
examples.
supposed to read. I don't think you're
if
supposed
you
to read
have
that
them.
part.
Well, that's what they were asking. Like, they wanted us to get in on this. Don't all pick this. Don't all pick Ronick. So
honestly, for me, it's it is actually the interaction that everyone just witnessed between JN and Japa. I have the fortunate opportunity to sit on narrative design calls with them, so I get to hear this a lot on a weekly basis, and it is a highlight for me. So they get my vote.
Amazing how much we hold back to, I would say.
Oh my gosh.
I could be right. I could be wrong. But I feel like there's this just brimming engine of dry banter that is just right there waiting to just burst out every time. I mean, right now, like I could have gone with him on that last exchange for like 30 minutes. So it takes a lot.
In social settings, our wives have individually said to us, you have to have normal conversations with other people because it excludes other people when you just basically bat a banter ball back and forth all night. It's impolite. Stop it. And yeah, so I don't know if it's funny or not. I enjoy it.
I enjoy it. It's cathartic and it's hilarious.
Yeah, that makes me feel
and I'm
good.
better at it.
They need
secretly.
They
the
both
rest
need
of
to
the
be on
team,
these
when the
streams way
expose
more
and
often.
The game and the company comes out. I'm sure it will be a lot of unflattering words used, but we have fun.
I have two. That one's probably you'd expect, and one's a little surprising. So I think Jared is hilarious. He's just like so dry and like he's so sincere about the humor that when he says it, I think sometimes he doesn't even realize how funny he is. He's just so witty and his just the details in which he goes and he cracks me up all the time. The other one is a little surprising. Rowan is hilarious. He'll every once in a while he'll throw in he's kind of like one of those players that they don't come to the plate often, but when they do, they hit a home run every time. And he's kind of he's that way. He'll stealthily throw in a funny joke here or there.
I'm totally going to come out of silence and weigh in on this as well, because it just happened. So for those of you who don't know, this is Ben. I'm sitting in the background. I'm weighing up the questions. I'm sort of lining them up. And I put a note in here and I said, guys, can you please vary your responses and have fun? But Tony just read straight through it. And I love it. So Tony gets my award for the day. Love you,
It's
Tony.
like Anchorman, right? He'll read whatever you put on the screen.
It's exactly what just happened.
Oh my god.
So I want to throw a random one out there too. So obviously working with David, I mean, it's obvious he's for me. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like it could be anything. It could be the start of streams. We prep together to get him ready to say, the date, the year, what we're talking about. And even this stream is proof. If you go back and watch the beginning, it never works. But I love him. We work a lot together. So he's one. What?
I think I need to go through some kind of therapy to get that intro right. I don't know what's the mental block there.
But here's the one that I love, because not many people get to talk or interact with this one. But I have an amazing relationship with Rob. And Rob is super blunt and he's super funny. And there is an ongoing joke that I am now going to share and probably get yelled at for. That when I joined the team, we made a video from Pantheon Plus. And this is an internal joke, so stop me if I'm not allowed to tell it. But we kind of covered, like, at the time, the most known pieces of the development team and kind of talked about them. And Rob always is behind the scenes. So a lot of people don't know.
Oh, I remember
So the first
this.
thing when I got in there was Rob goes, you're on our team now, huh? You didn't even put me in that video, did you? So from that day, the internal joke is that Theric didn't allow me to do it. So every time something happens, I say to Rob, I told you, that Theric guy, you think he's a nice guy, Rob, but this is what he did to you. So it's been an ongoing joke, and I love Rob. We get along great. That's one for me. How about you, Kyle?
Dry humor kills me, so I get most of my laughs out of CP. With just the deadpan, you can't even tell he's telling a joke until you think about it for a second. That absolutely kills me.
That sounds pretty funny.
Chris, didn't you just recently talk about how you want to do like a dad joke, no laugh contest with the team too? So.
Yeah, because I've done a couple and I've won both of them. That I've done, so I just feel like it's natural to take it to the next level.
I've seen videos like that.
Well, what's so funny is I was actually going to say you, Kyle, as mine, because if I have to literally define it as what has made me laugh the hardest, it has been things that you've shown me, be it like videos, like I'm thinking like the Subnautica video.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Some other things that, and then the laughing that we do together, because it's just this genuine, deep bellied laughing at these things, and then some of the conversations that spin off of that have been really funny to me.
Yeah, likewise.
I'd have to give it to Kyle as like the hardest laughs I feel like I've had.
Adam or Jay, and you guys want to weigh in at all?
Adam's already done his. David, I guess you weren't paying attention.
I must have missed that.
We just unlocked Chris to now do this the rest of the stream.
He's given full license.
We're gonna move on then. We got a new viewer.
Skip me, please. Nobody here's funny. I've never laughed one day on the project. It's just been tears and agony, except for Rob. Rob makes me laugh too, for the same reasons that Minus mentioned.
So we got a new viewer question. This is from Sir Medieval. Are there
that was a minus
Why would you do
pronunciation.
that to
That's
him?
actually the real way you spell it. That's not misspelled.
I know. I'm just playing around.
Oh, was that a joke? Okay. So you didn't actually mean to pronounce it that way?
No, I did. I'm just having fun here. Are there still plans to introduce a mentor system sometime after launch? Something that allows players to temporarily de-level and descale themselves down to their party members so that higher levels and low levels can adventure together.
Yes. I I don't like questions where I can't give more details. I know I've had this discussion with Adam before as well. I think at least once, if not multiple times, and I know it's something that he also finds important and sees value in. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely on our radar for sure. When it will actually be seen is something we can't answer just yet.
Awesome.
Hey, Minus, thanks for stopping by. I mean, we were just cracking up. This has been this has been one of the most entertaining streams in a long time, and fairly informative too. Like we were saying, that I'm really impressed by the questions that the community was asking, and that have been picked out by the devs here. Just really actually good, like, targeted questions and good answers as well. So yeah, definitely so far so good. We're about 2/3 of the way through, and I'm about 3/5 of the way through my bingo card, so we're on track. Good stuff.
So I think it's funny people are starting to phonetically spell out how Ronik said Sir Medieval, and it's looking a lot like Seville Manor and how that all started. So we're cycling right back. So for this is great. I love this. So for Adam, so it's been a while since we've really learned some updates on crafting and how it's been developing. Do we have some progress to talk about in any of those categories, in any of the crafting categories?
Oh, there's crafting. Hey, another bingo.
So this is another one of those things that comes down to programmer allocation, unfortunately. So the bad news is that we have not had as much opportunity to focus on that as we would, of course, like. Poor David Beach, Neff, for those who are familiar, has been waiting very patiently, I should add, to get the additional support that he needs to continue wiring in crafting to the fullest extent. The good news is that is slotted between next week and the week after to begin.
And by the way, that was from Kevchem. Want to make sure you give him a shout out.
CP, Big Badass 1, not 2, Big Badass 1, wants to know, will the game be based around the casual and hardcore gameplay to fit all play styles as far as getting metas done to accomplish achievements and attainable shiny items, etc.?
Can you run that by me one more time?
Yeah. Will the game be based around the casual and hardcore gameplay to fit all play styles as far as getting, I think they're asking, like, will the game, fit all play styles in order to accomplish achievements and
Can
get
you play hardcore and casually, I guess?
Yeah, and I think as well, like, can both of those types of players get some of the cool items in particular?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, this sounds like a question, first of all, that only a big badass would ask. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think not too long ago we did, when we kind of broke down how we were approaching the difficulty, where we're not making a game where you literally have to crawl in a full group every step of the way in the overland, for example, just to get anywhere. We had a few iterations like that, and it's not fun. And so what we've done over time is we've made several really significant strides towards creating a kind of game world where there's plenty of opportunity and plenty of content that players can. Casual seems to be kind of a bad word, I guess, but when I say casual, I'm thinking more like all of my like neural synapses and my stabilizer muscles and every part of my being, it has to be like full sail, full send focused on what I'm doing, or I'm dead. That's casual is not that. Casual is I can play the game lightheartedly, and that we want there to be that. We want there to be enough of that in the game that players can enjoy the adventure aspects of Pantheon, can enjoy moving around as much of the game world as they find that they can. And we've used Elden Ring as an example of that, where very difficult game. Extremely challenging in so many aspects of it, but yet there's also this freedom that you have to move around the world and to experience a large portion of the overland areas. And if you're careful, if you're thoughtful, if you're skilled, then you can even increase that freedom by finding kind of the more skillful ways of doing that, and maybe getting a little further and a little farther. So I don't want to be long-winded on this, but it's a really important question if I'm understanding it correctly. On the flip side, we want really, really hard, challenging content as well. One of my favorite things about Kyle, just as a person and what he brings to the table, is when I was first getting to know him really well, kind of as a person and as a gamer. We mentioned before how deep into World of Warcraft he has been, and kind of the high level that he plays that game on, with how far he's pushing the Mythic Plus content, and kind of his ranking. And it's a big deal to him. Being able to have content that's like bleeding edge, surgically challenging is a big deal, and he's expressed from early on like his desire to see things like that. And I know Adam's the same way. I mean, Adam and Kyle both put me to shame in terms of like the level of like high challenge rating that they both have done very deeply. And so I know for both of those guys, there's this like not only this deep love for and appreciation for, but also this really good sensibility for how to create extremely challenging content. And we want that. We just don't want that to be everywhere all the time. We want there to be a really nice spectrum. And in that sense, we do want there to be something for players to do, regardless of what their come from is. And I remember there was an achievement mentioned in that question as well. And I think achievements are great. Like, I know some people kind of snub their nose at them, but at the end of the day, like, they're cool. When you achieve something, it can be, a great feat. It can be something like just being the first person to stand on the spot, whatever it is. It's just cool. And it does create a sense of journey and a sense of, a robustness to your character's journey that you can in some ways chronicle based on that. And so having achievements that are achievable by the casual and the hardcore is absolutely a part of this whole spectrum. So hopefully that answers it well.
Chris, in the chat, somebody said, I don't want to be long-winded on this. Japa, November 2022.
Yeah. He's still, the legends say he's still answering the question.
Jan, would you like to comment on that at all?
No, I was muted,
Chris,
but when he said I don't want to be long-winded, I said, well, then don't. I was muted, so.
So remember when I mentioned that I have the luxury...
The burden, you meant to say?
Yeah, the burden of being on the narrative call with B and JN.
I mean, we can go back to the bog and the river analogy if you want. I thought
that was written just for you. I pulled that out. I was sitting there at the precipice, and I said, should I go there or not? And I did. And it was just for you.
You did.
Right.
You went there.
You lost about half the chat, I think, with that one. I'm not going to lie.
David's still trying to figure out how to pronounce medieval.
No, the chat was very clear. I have no idea what that meant. And that's fine.
All right. So the next question here is from ArcSun77. Can we talk a little bit? I think we dropped a little bit of beans. I can't remember when. It's been recently, about character customization. I think it was with when we were talking to...
It was the Tara stream.
In Tara, yeah. So from customer character customization, what kind of depth will we have in that from like a body customization or face customization?
Body's still kind of on the table right now. I don't know. We kind of have to explore how it looks when we enter. Like, everything is staged to be morphed, so we have the ability to do that morphing. Dwarf's done a phenomenal job setting everything up with the rigging. So the potential is there. It's scoped to be possible, but we want to make sure that we don't want to allow players to create. I'll just say characters that are so far removed from the intended silhouette of their race. So we're not looking at preset body types. I don't think that's on the table at all. But we are looking at, some constrained sliders. Certainly in the face, that's definitely expected. I wouldn't expect, some of the more expansive degrees of customization that some more recent MMORPGs have offered. I think we're focused more on the big picture aesthetics. But we do want to give players, as much range as possible within that. And so even, when we're talking about sliders are more likely to be limited. When we talk about things like colors, we want to give more flexibility, but again, within constraints. So if we talk about something like a color wheel, we want to let players decide between, if blue is an option, how blue do you go, and define, the high limits of that. We don't want to have bright blue, Smurf colored characters. And I say that just thinking about a dwarf just came to mind. It's not turning your blue value on an RGB slider all the way up to 255 and turning everything else to 0. But degrees of blue that you have that full spectrum from that starting point to that far extreme that you can take it to, as opposed to a number of presets. And then a few different attachment points that we're also discussing as well. So things to customize, what kind of ears do you have? Do you have cheek spikes? Do you have, I was going to say horns, then I just remembered our scar technically. Justin, remind me, we don't call them horns. They're like functionally similar to their ears, but I'm blanking on the exact
they
terminology
function
now.
as ear, they're more like ear, bones really than horns. But yeah, I appreciate that. But yes, they're not technically horns.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a range planned. I think it's going to be. I'm actually very sensitive about character customization. For me, there are games that I literally will not play if I cannot identify with my character. So it's very near and dear to my heart to make sure that it's robust. But we're not, looking to make it anything over the top.
What about, you kind of touched a little bit about body type, but what about like normal stuff like height?
Yeah, so it's still within constraints, right? We're not going to let you take an ogre and shrink it down to dwarf size. But we do have plans to at least allow height in terms of like a full transform. So actually taking something, just scaling it down, between two separate constraints. So there will be degrees of adjustment there.
Okay, so guys, on that note, I need to go customize my bladder real quick. Because as Nimrel said, been going for about 2 hours now. I need to take a short break because I need to pee, and I've been chugging the water this whole past 2 hours. And there's not an end in sight. Well, I guess there's 22 minutes left in the stream, but who knows how much discussion that is going to bring on. So give me 2 minutes, take a short intermission. In the meantime, I will play some break music for you, which I have never used before ever during a live stream. So give you a little taste of that. Enjoy that. I promise I'll be back real quick.
BazgrimTV will be right back, or I'm a bearded gnome.
All right, as promised, I have returned. Now I'm ready to rock and roll. All right, everybody still with me? Hopefully you got a chance to regroup yourself. All right, next question.
Great. I am not asking this next question.
Why? You're next up.
No, I'm not
Come
asking
on.
this question. You can. No, we're not asking.
All right. Well, Random Rob wants to know, what kind of hair product does Ronik use? We need to know.
I whatever. This is a stupid question. Sorry, Random Rob. I'm sure it's great. I use Magic Move. It's this like putty.
Oh man!
Wait, he actually does?
All right.
Get the memes. Nathan Napalm
wow.
was in chat. I expect there to be a full video on the mystical hair product that he uses. Let's get this going.
What?
I think we have a whole other channel coming up on Ronik's hair tips.
Then
Is it
I'm
called
gonna
Bring the Thunder?
I haven't brought the thunder in a while. I'm looking forward to the next time I could bring the thunder, which I'm hoping is soon.
Can we get like a Soul Glow grade like music video to your Magic Move hair product?
What? Is this real? Is he for real? Magic Move, 4.2 ounces, $110? How? Dude, what is he? Who knew Ronik was a high roller? What is going on right now? Is this reality? Is this something different? Yeah. I am like, I am speechless.
And you applying it?
Just let your soul like yeah. Anyway,
it's a lot higher note than that, but yeah.
I can't. You know me.
You didn't even try that.
What a good question, though. Holy.
Wow.
Kyle's over there just laughing.
I'm dying, just muted.
I mean, you don't have to sing it, David. You can just play the song and then
I mean, I can tell that like Ronik was like kind of embarrassed about that question. At first I thought like that's kind of a dumb question too, but who would have thought that was a sniper shot. He just unleashed something that I could have never guessed. Not that he actually I was going to give him more credit than that. I thought his hair just naturally looked like that. He's just, been growing out, it gets wavy, but no. He's got a whole like routine and an expensive one at that. Wow, this changes everything.
Do the thing,
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Double voice saying Magic Move over Soul Glow.
It sounds like an ability.
You can film it in a bog or like a
wizard ability.
Probably a river. I would say
medieval times.
Yeah.
Medieval.
Medieval.
First of all, that was a joke. Unlike Minus, who actually mispronounces things, thinking it's the actual pronunciation. But anyway, moving on. We have a new viewer question.
Unlike Minus, who mispronounces. Oh my god. This is priceless. This is like, this is a meme goldmine, this stream. Ronik clearly hasn't nailed the fine art of the dry humor. It's like when Joppa just says things like dryly, it lands, but when Ronik says it, people think he's being serious. Oh my god.
This is from Effins. What will we're a little punch drunk tonight, folks. We'll just say that. What will the experience be like uniting with fellow players across the world at game launch? Will it be harsh, or will there be systems in play to make it easier? Actually, that's a great question.
Do you want to answer that one, David?
I mean, with me, it's going to be difficult even if we make it easy. So, no, I think you should answer it.
this is like two friends being able to start new characters and find each other quickly, right?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I mean, if we're doing EQ, it's like, somebody starting in Freeport versus somebody starting in Keenest,
Sure.
right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we don't have a really great answer for that as far as, pointing to anything specific. Part of the reason for that is because, some of those decisions, like the infrastructure is there to do essentially whatever we ultimately decide we want to do. But until we get the game to a point where in testing we can have more of a critical mass, we can have more of the world online and can actually see player migration and, get a better sense of what that feels like. I feel like we would be, putting something in place prematurely. So it's a really interesting design kind of pathway to walk. Adam and I were just talking earlier today about, kind of the amount of waiting and traveling and the time that all these things take in, some of these more classically oriented games versus what, people have become used to over the last decade or more with the more instantaneous travel. And I spoke pretty recently on, how strongly I feel that like too much instantaneous travel, you're really not playing an MMORPG anymore in some respects. And it does kind of change the whole, it just changes so many aspects of it. But when it comes to specific things like, that kind of starting experience, and depending on how vast the world is and how travel is set up, when it all is said and done, if you're looking at, a 2 or 3 hour ordeal to try to get from somewhere at level 1, to somewhere else so that you can play with your friend, it's something that we want to take into consideration very carefully and make sure that, it's a good decision for the health of the game long term. And we need more data. We need more actual players. We need more actual game world to navigate that decision properly.
I'll jump in too, and I think Kyle, you'll understand this too. And anyone who's played EQ, David sort of said already, but I remember having to get on that boat and cross, and like that, I have memories. Like there's so many memories that came from that. And for me, one of the biggest ones was I think the first race I made in WoW was the Night Elf, but everyone was playing humans. So like I had to take that really long trip to get over to Stormwind, and that was like honestly to this day I remember those moments. I taking those away would feel wrong. I don't know. I don't know if you guys all agree with that, but just going through the caves and oh no, these spiders are all way too high. Sneak and be careful. Dying and being like,
where was this again?
Stuff. What's that?
Where was this again?
To go from was it Darnassus to Stormwind?
Oh, you're talking WoW.
For EQ, it was getting on the boat. Like I think I remember going through Butcher Block to get to the boat to get to Freeport, if I remember correctly. So that was difficult. Or even playing in Ixar back then and just trying to get anywhere. There was just a lot came from that, I believe. So
sure. Yeah, I still remember Darkstriders in Eastern Karana because of that. Trying to run at level 9 on a Paladin from Kanos to Freeport, and getting all the way to Freeport, getting all the way to North Row, and then getting attacked by a ghoul and rooted until no idea where I was. Had a Fine Steel two-handed sword that somebody had given me, thought I was the stuff, and I ended up deleting that character because I just had absolutely no idea where to get back to. So,
how about when a brownie was chasing you and you couldn't?
Oh my goodness, I got it. I mean, that's like PTSD. Those brownies, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were there. I remember huffing through there at like level 34 on a cleric, my first time in Lesser Fate Arc, and just seeing this little thing like out of the corner of my eye, and like, oh, what was that?
You're lucky if you even saw.
Then I'm rooted and nuked twice and just explode, and I have no idea, what, just no sense of what these things are, and then trying to get it back, my corpse back, and I had like, this was back in the day, so I mean, I had like vendor bought plate mail legs and boots and arms, and I had like a bloodstained tunic, so I had that really cool human plate with like the red bloodstained tunic vibe and look. I mean, I was feeling pretty good about myself, and then this brownie just obliterates me, and oh my gosh.
I think you can't, like, if you cut down travel too much, you lose a lot of those stories. And I think that I said this earlier in our Discord is conflict creates a lot of the best stories.
Mhm.
At the moment, you're frustrated, but when you look back at it, it's their memories. So
Yeah, I mean, that case in point right there, the vividness of these experiences that arise out of a open world that is challenging, that doesn't really care about you. It just exists, and carries all sorts of obstacles and difficulties that you need to rise to the occasion. And sometimes you might get beaten down like this. But you know, a world that doesn't artificially scale and tailor to the player, and you know, a world that doesn't respect the player, that demands that the player rise to the occasion, like that. Again, I think they summed it up very nicely. That, you know, it might suck in the moment, you know, when you do get killed. Like, it's not fun. Like, nobody likes that feeling, you know, immediately after you die and you think like, oh man, I'm really in trouble. I don't know how I'm going to get back to my corpse, etc., etc. It's like, yeah, that sucks, but got to think bigger than that. Like the bigger picture, the long term, the feeling of satisfaction when you do overcome those things is priceless. Like, a lot of the stories that they're telling resonates with me as well, like, and countless other people of those really, really, you know, terrible things that happen back in the day, still, you know, are still with us vividly, and we actually look back on them fondly, and almost kind of wish to be able to experience that sort of thing again. Like, even the brownies, classic example. Like, my uncle tells the story all the time about, so he used to play a wood elf ranger, because, you know, he seems cool, you know, like an elf that living in the trees, shooting bows and stuff. Sounds cool. Leveled up like 30 or so, and then obviously realized, you know, back in the day, 1999, EverQuest Ranger was essentially incapable of staying alive for any extended period of time. And it was particularly the brownies. I remember him saying that we're just absolutely obliterating him and made it almost impossible to play. And so he retired that character, didn't delete it, but essentially just stopped playing the character completely and rolled up the complete opposite, which was an ogre warrior, because he was like, I'm tired of dying. I'm gonna create a character that essentially can't die. And so and then he played that ogre warrior for a long time, all the way up to max level. And so stories like that are timeless, of like the pain of death, even to the point of like, I can't play this character anymore. Like, that's an awful feeling at the time. You know, like, oh, I gotta start over. I gotta make a new character. You know, in the moment, you know, nobody wants to have to do that, but in the grand scheme of things, some stories like that, that's just priceless. Obviously, you know, again, you've got to give the player some ability to overcome those obstacles, but even if it takes some trial and error, takes some time, it's a lot more fulfilling than a game that just lets you walk all over it, you know?
Good.
One of the things that flying mounts completely obliterates too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's so great about this team is a majority of us come from that same place, right? Of like these experiences and these stories and these sort of, you know, adventures that we've had in other games, and that we're trying to bring that to Pantheon. And that's, you know, for new players who haven't experienced that, right? It's like taking sort of that love of the game and putting it in, remixing it, and now here it is as something new. And that's what I love about this team.
All right. So last question. And then
Last
we'll kind of
question.
wrap up after. It's from Oren. He says, how likely
Hey, it's Oren.
is it that Bard will be available at launch?
So
just a
the
reminder
classic
that
question.
Pantheon is a crowdfunded game. We really appreciate everybody coming out. And if you check that pledge page to help us out and speed things up, or just follow us on social media, anything from Facebook, Twitter, Discord, and everything, YouTube. So just, hit us up there. You can help us anyway. It doesn't always have to be monetary. You can help us just by supporting and sharing the word. So anyway, closing thoughts.
What?
Closing thoughts. Everybody get some closing thoughts.
We'll start with JN. Why don't you start us off?
Did they just intentionally skip over that question? I mean, because I'm sure that there's no new information since the last time that was asked. It seemed like I thought he was going to use that as a segue where it's like, Pantheon is a crowdfunded game, which they talk about every, we gotta fit it in somewhere, every stream. Use that as a segue where, Bard's chances of being in at launch, it depends on how much funding they get and whether they have the time and the resources for it, et cetera, et cetera. And they all laughed. I thought they were going to bring it back around, but I think the non-answer is the answer, that there is no new information about that.
Nothing to play off of. I have nothing to say then.
I know. I want to see how you do, spur of the moment, like fresh.
Fresh. What does that mean?
Well, anyway, I've said and felt at different times in development that the team has never been stronger and more pointed with speed and capability in the right direction. But I think the team that we have right now, from top to bottom, has a really great combination of incredible talent, has unified direction and leadership, and an incredible amount of passion. So my favorite thing is logging on to the game and seeing what's new. It's getting sent different pieces of art that have come along, and just the volume of it now that's happening and the rate at which iteration is happening is faster than ever. And so it's exciting. It can be overwhelming, but it's exciting to see that. And so I've never been more optimistic about the success of the game. And honestly, there's too many people to list why that's happening, but a lot of it does have to do with the work that CP and Adam have done, the unity that they have, and then the work that everybody who's on this stream has done. I mean, I get a little window into what Kyle and Rob do on a daily, and Steve and so many others on the programming side of the team, and it's just phenomenal, the turnaround time, whether it's features, whether it's improvements. It's just amazing to me how many leaps this game has taken recently, and then I also know what that's building to in the near future. So I'm extremely excited. I'm extremely positive, and I look forward to every day. So that was me flat-footed with nothing witty or funny to say, and hopefully it made more sense than bog and water analogies.
It did. Kyle?
Oh yeah. Man, I just got to say, Steve coming on the team this last year has enabled the programming team to focus a lot better on specific things. Before he was here, Rob would be on tools, let's say, and I'd be doing big gameplay feature, then bouncing to bugs and back to gameplay feature, and then back to a bug. And it was hard to stay focused on something because you're just wearing too many hats, having to bounce around. Now we're able to really focus on stuff. Maybe Steve's focused on bug fixing while Rob's focused on tools, and I can focus on a new feature without having to redirect myself all the time. And that's been one of the best changes, I think, for the team this last year. I'm really excited to how we can continue to leverage the new programming power that we have this upcoming year.
Awesome. And I just want to give a shout out. We have CR in chat. And I just want to read what he said real quick before we continue on, about tech and QA who do their jobs very quietly with excellence. I just want to give a huge shout out to Kim and her team. The meticulous nature of their work is mind blowing to me. It's sometimes it's not always fun. Most of the time it's probably not, but it's so well done and they are so strong willed and they're so organized. And I just want to reiterate, since CR brought that up, that's really important to know because it's all done behind the scenes. So,
and our technical director as well, Sam Scott. I mean, just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. He has headed up and shouldered some very significant operational changes over the years that could have been an absolute dumpster fire mess that were the exact opposite because of how well he plans these things out, lays these things out, communicates protocol, and we are very blessed. We are very blessed with some very, very important and talented key people in very key roles. Kim and Sam being some of those, and then of course the teams that they represent. This is a wonderful team to work with.
I
Ben,
also want to. Yeah, sorry, I'm walking all over you, Tony. No, I chiming in again here. Sorry, but I want to give a shout out to the CS team, both Mike and Jason. I know that the VIPs can, and the pre-alpha testers can attest to this. They do a lot of hard work, particularly during pre-alpha sessions, but also in between sessions. Tickets do come in, even though we haven't launched the game. They're usually very, very quick to respond. I know that many of you have had problems, and they've been hopefully able to resolve them in a quick manner. I feel that they have. Their turnaround time is excellent, and they love talking to you. So that's
true.
been really great. But I also want to tip my hat to Gina, who's our HR director, who has literally changed things fundamentally at our core, with a lot of new hires coming in, a lot of procedures coming that we've improved upon. She's done an amazing job behind the scenes, and last but not least, the MPR team. I mean, Tony and Dave have been doing a fantastic job, and Ben Walters over there as well. Been doing a fantastic job just communicating with you guys, keeping up with content. You guys always have feedback, and we welcome that. But we've received many comments about how, excuse me, our communications have improved, and we're very, very elated to hear that. And it's all due to the work of these people. And we do have some exciting news that the search for a community manager is nearing an end. Some of you know that we posted that job not too long ago. We will have news for you very shortly on that. Pretty exciting news. We're not going to share it just yet, but once all that's locked in, then we'll have even more in the family. So thank you for everybody, to everybody, all of our viewers and all of our teams. I think we've come a long way. So thank you.
I think
I wonder if it's gonna be somebody, the community manager. Like, I wonder, is it gonna be somebody that we know, that we like recognize? Is it gonna be somebody from maybe within the community, or like an established like professional community manager, maybe from like another game that's moving into Pantheon? Or will it be, I'm just going off the way that he like phrased that. Almost kind of makes it seem that way, as opposed to somebody who's like completely new, which would be fine too. Sometimes it's good to get some fresh faces, some new ideas that never heard of. That will be I think that would be pretty significant. Obviously a lot of the focus right now is on art and programming and like reaching those milestones. That to reach alpha, like that's obviously absolutely vital, but also as part of the lead up to alpha, I mean, like I was saying earlier, when alpha comes, the community is no doubtedly going to grow, because there's just going to be, when Pantheon actually does confirm their alpha date, there's going to be a lot more eyes on the project, and they need to be ready for that and to communicate with those people effectively. And as I've said also before and many times, Visionary Realms communication has improved noticeably, but it still leaves a lot to be desired. And they've certainly made their fair share of mistakes over the years, and I think just bolstering their front-facing team with a community manager who can, really just sink into that role and provide some new perspectives, I think will be very valuable. So I'm definitely closely watching that one. So if you follow me on social media, on Twitter, and any of the other social medias, you'll see that I posted recently. I did notice I keep an eye on the Visionary Realms career page pretty regularly, and they are, they had a job opening for a technical artist and a community manager open for a while, and then that community manager opening did just come down pretty recently. As they've said, that's because they hired somebody. So, yeah, definitely we'll keep you all posted on that one when the time comes. Still, last I checked, they're still looking for a technical artist. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I mean, Visionary Realms has their own website. There's the PantheonMMO.com, but there's also VisionaryRealms.com /career, where they have their job openings posted, and you can click on any of them. And there's a lot. If you're really like interested in the development of the game and following it closely, like there's a lot of valuable information that they only post in these job openings when they're looking for new developers. Obviously, it's always very exciting to see the team grow, and because as the team grows, things get done faster. And a technical artist will be another big hire. This one's specifically focusing on visual effects and shaders and things like that. So, that would be good. So yeah, so they're tackling it from both directions. You got an artist actually, working on the game itself, but then can't deny the community sides of things either. So good stuff. All right, we're getting there finally. We are approaching the finish line.
I think it's obvious we like each other.
Yeah.
So
We wrap
Adam,
that up that way.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
We have to go to Adam next, because I'm sure CP is not going to have much.
Adam.
But there's a reason. CP probably doesn't have a lot to say, so we can let him just close it up real quick.
Yeah. So to clarify, okay. So I kind of glossed over this a little bit. So Kilson, Ben Kilson Walters has been the community manager for Pantheon since 2015. Ben was originally part of the community. He was just a fan. He was a very outspoken fan. That's something I think actually not a lot of people know about him back in the day before he joined the team. He was actually fairly critical of the game. But that was, that came from his passion for the game and wanting to see the game succeed. And if anybody thinks that the PR for Pantheon is maybe not good right now, it was 10 times worse back that in 2015. It was about as bad as it can get as far as PR goes. And Kilson was part of that. He was highly critical of the game. And but VR, being a company that doesn't shy away from the criticism and actually embraces it and sees the value in it, Joppa brought Kilson onto the team. Joppa at that time was, I mean, had pretty much every hat on that you could possibly have. He was like the creative director and a lore writer and a game designer and world builder and also part-time community manager. It's like way too much. Way too much for one person, too much on his plate. And so he brought Kilson on to take the community management things off of his plate. And Kilson has been quite the trooper through all those years, through all the ups and downs of the company. He's been doing his best in that role. And, but that's, he has done an admirable job, but it's not really his specialty. Particularly when it comes to like the social media side of things in community engagement on all the different platforms and stuff. So Kilson is still on the team, but he's transitioning more into, Grogu pointed out, conduct and security manager. So that's his new role. Kind of more behind the scenes, related, but what that means is establishing policies and then later, enforcing policies for in-game and out-of-game behavior, defining things like, what is kill stealing, things like that, like toxic behavior in-game and out-of-game as well. So, as he transitions into more of that obviously leaves an opening for somebody who is more front-facing to be more actively engaged in the community and communicating with people on all of Pantheon's different platforms. And so, as the team gets the funding and they expand their team and people can wear less hats and really, kind of narrow their focus on what their specialty is, that's a benefit for everybody for sure. So Thorndeep says, I feel sorry for the CS team when Alpha hits. Yeah, it's gonna be a deluge, I think. There's going to be a lot. I can foresee a lot of people kind of coming out of the woodwork who have either not heard about Pantheon ever, or they heard about it, a long time ago, and maybe they're coming in with all these really outdated preconceived notions about what Pantheon is, and they have all these sorts of questions about like, what about this and this and this, dredging up all these like old questions. It's going to be difficult. Pantheon has a long and storied history that they're going to have to answer for when that time comes. So yeah, I can definitely see why they would want to get a new community manager in and established and settled in and comfortable well in advance of when Alpha actually hits. Cause yeah, they're going to have their hands full. Thorndeep says, what happened with Brass? Yeah. So Brass was she was more of like a community management consultant, more of like kind of like a part-time position. She appeared in a couple streams, but she didn't do a whole lot of front-facing interactions. And so she's no longer on their team page. I don't know exactly what happened, but people come and go throughout the project. Again, those of you who follow the development closely, I would recommend not only keeping an eye on their job openings on the Visionary Realms website, but also the team page on pantheonmmo.com/team to see, who's currently on the team, and this new names will pop up here sometimes before they even announce them. Sometimes they'll never announce them, actually, which is interesting. Like Mo Ismailzeh, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. Linux administrator on their technology team. He was never announced in like any of the producers letters or streams or anything. Completely stealth hire, which is interesting. Maybe maybe that was just their choice. Some people don't want to be in the spotlight, which is totally understandable. But so if you really want to get an accurate understanding of where their team's at, keep an eye on this team page for sure. But the team has definitely been growing this year significantly. So anyway, they also have the additional contributors down here. These are people who worked on the project in the past, but no longer do. And Linda Carlson, that's brass. So we can see that she's no longer on the team, and that clearly that happens all the time. They don't always announce when that happens or why that happens, because sometimes it's just none of our business. People come and go, contracts expire, whatever the case may be. I liked having Brass around. I thought she was a good personality to have in the streams, but who knows, any sort of like real life situations that might have prevented her from really contributing more time to the project or whatever. So, but yeah, I can't think of. I'm trying to think of like other like well-known community managers in the like MMO space that they could pick up. Like Brass certainly comes to mind. Like she was a pretty well-known figure in the genre. And like, who knows? Maybe it's the return of Brass. Maybe she's coming back. I don't know. I think that's probably pretty unlikely, but yeah, we're just gonna have to see. Gonna have to see. Oh yeah, minus the audio as well for Java back then. Good point. Yeah, it's like what wasn't he doing back then? That was when he was composing a lot of the tracks that are still used today. You can still listen to on Pantheon's SoundCloud. The like official soundtrack for the game that they put out. That was all Joppa back in those days. That's how he first joined the team. He came on as a composer in 2014, like midway through 2014. He was not part of the original Kickstarter team, but he joined kind of in the aftermath of the Kickstarter. Came on just as a composer, but in those following months, clearly demonstrated not only a passion but also a competency for game design as well. And Brad recognized that Brad had a keen ability to see what the strengths were of other people and leverage that. And so Java very quickly found himself in charge of pretty much everything. Like I said, like all of those, he had all of the hats. In like less than a year of being on the team. So yeah, so Nimrod is asking, is he still doing that? So Joppa has said that he has not composed music in a long time because he just doesn't have the time, even with everything else that's going on. He just can't really commit to that. So again, I mean, let's utilize the resources that we have available to us. On the it's not down there. It's the team. Again, right on this page that we were just on. Audio, Chris Perkins, technically still the audio director, but in that he more or less has the final say, the audio that goes into the game. But that doesn't mean that he is composing entirely new tracks on his own. He said that he just doesn't have the time. And if you want to hear more about that, again, go to the librarypantheon.com. Do a search for Chris Parkins and do a search for audio to hear everything that they've said about that in the past. I think they're probably outsourcing like audio, and little like sound effects and clips and stuff. They haven't released any like full tracks of anything in a long time. But when it comes to just little sound effects and stuff, I think that's probably being outsourced. But Chris probably has the final say as to what actually goes into the game. But yeah, I mean, these are good questions. And I should clarify too that Chris has also expressed the need to bring on a dedicated composer when the time is right. It's just not there yet. The need isn't there for it quite yet, but at some point down the line, Chris will be passing off those responsibilities to somebody who really can make that their entire job, whether it be composing an entirely new soundtrack or just taking over, all of the duties of the audio director completely. He will be passing that off to somebody in the future, who will be hand selected by him, and somebody who shares, the same vision and who can take what they already have and really make it even better. But the tracks that Chris did put out back in the like 2014, 2015 era, they're gonna be tough to beat. He put out some very good stuff that I still enjoy listening to even after all this time. Grogu said he was a music teacher, right? Yeah. I think that is true. I mean, he was already like a musician and a teacher before joining Visionary Realms, and that's kind of how he got his foot in the door. I mean, he had been wanting to apply that more to game development specifically, since also having a history and a passion for games and wanting to get into game development, which he was very interested in, and used his experience as a musician to kind of get that in, and clearly it worked. Particularly with a small indie team, and being able to grow with that team, when the team was even smaller back then, and they were still kind of like finding their footing, and so there definitely was an opportunity there to rise through the ranks, and he definitely did that.
Quick and succinct. So
I don't want to be long-winded.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And it's November 2021. Actually, I don't want to be long-winded. That's when that quote's from. Okay, Adam. Sorry.
That's when we hold up the SpongeBob card 1 year later. Yeah, I mean, honestly, so many people have already said everything that I really could think to say. Everyone on this team is so phenomenal. I think one of the greatest joys of being here is the fact that people are here because they have a joy and a passion for the work that they're doing, and the work on this project in particular, and the way that they're able to apply that to what they're doing and elevate their craft, really put their best foot forward, put their energy forward. Poor Kyle has pulled so many late nights with me, and I cannot thank him enough for it. And not because anyone said you had to, right? But because we just wanted to make this thing as good as we possibly could in the time that we had to do it. And just the way that energy bleeds through day to day just makes it such a joy to be part of this project. And I'm so grateful for every single person, whether it's the roles that are front and center or the roles that are quiet behind the scene. Everyone is integral. Everyone brings their best. And this year, I mean, we've really seen that make a difference. We've really seen that concurrency come together. We've seen it in a lot of ways that we have yet to show people, but that are just so exciting and energizing. And it's just been an amazing year.
GP, you want to close this out?
All right. It's all you, boss man. Mr. Japa. What do you call you? Mr. Chris Perkins? Mr. Perkins. It's all you, Mr. Perkins.
Just Mr. Perkins.
Any of those will work. Any of those will work. I'm usually the one gushing, I guess, and I don't feel the need to do that as much tonight. I really appreciate everything everyone said. And I guess I just want to. I'm trying to let it land on me because it's not an insignificant thing to be able to work on something that you are passionate about. I was thinking before this stream, this is hard. It's hard work. It's incredibly fun, and I'm reminded daily of how fortunate I am to be able to do this. But you can tell by the color of my hair that it's hard. It's really hard
to be able to do
it. To be able to do it with people that you genuinely care about, that you genuinely respect, that will challenge you in ways that are really important. We even had some conversations today that were pretty pointed, pretty forthright, and were really good, really helpful. I'm just really thankful for this team. I'm thankful for this team, and I don't want to take for granted like how significant it is. But on to the things that people care about as gamers in the community who genuinely care about. Like, I just want to say and reiterate that what I said earlier, which is, and this is what we're all on the same page here, that we want to move as quickly as we can to a point where we're able to consistently have our VIP testers in and have their hands on this game. That is kind of at the forefront of our minds right now. And I just appreciate the patience. We appreciate the patience. I saw a question come through about some of the games that have launched recently and kind of how we feel about that. And, one of the biggest things is that it's been a reminder that, there are these really important kind of reset points, whether it's alpha, whether it's beta, whether it's ultimately launch, and getting to those points is all that matters. So I don't know who needs to hear this, but I just feel the need to say, we want to finish this game. None of us are interested in, sitting on our hands. We're ready to get this game done. So that's where our heart's at. That's where our focus is at. That's where our energies are. Thank you for hanging in there with us. Thank you for the continued support and the patience. And onward and upward.
There it is. There's the bingo.
Couldn't be said any better.
Waiting for
Everybody
it.
have a great night. Thanks for sticking late with us tonight. We hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you with Parting the Veil next week. Take care, everybody.
Thanks all.
Good night, everyone.
And thank you guys for joining us tonight.
Thank you for putting that in at the very end, Ronick, right as we were about to all leave.
Thank you for that, Ronick.
You're welcome.
Oh man, I'm glad they pointed it out. Oh, that's a good way to end it. Oh man, that was good. How many bingos did I get? 1, 2. Oh no, that onward. Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4 bingos. Not bad. Didn't quite fill up the card, but man, that was good. That was a good mix of comedy and information. And you know what? I think, kind of bouncing off the note that they kind of ended on, that I think, you know, obviously everybody's asking about like dates and like, when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? You know, it's very natural to ask things like that. And even though they didn't really, you know, some of their answers, they were kind of like skirting around, obviously, and probably for the better, didn't want to like commit to something that they don't know that they can't follow through with. But I think something that was very valuable about this that might be underrated was it did shed quite a bit of light on what it's like behind the scenes of development and why they, you know, have a hard time giving firm timeframes for things and why these things take a long time. Like, there's a lot more that goes into implementing a feature than it may seem. It's a lot more complicated. You know, something that may seem simple from the outside, from our perspective, like, oh, just drop in the new character models. Like, what's taking you so long? It's very easy to say things like that, but you know, there are reasons for why it might not be able to happen exactly when you want it to happen. So, you know, and that's very valuable to discuss in an open development like this, in a crowdfunded development, because again, like I've talked about all the time, a development that is this out in the open is just hasn't really happened before, and a lot of people you know, still don't really fully comprehend what the process is like. And maybe that's because they just don't care, and that's fine. You know, you can't force people to care about something that they're just not going to care about. But having more discussions about this, I think, definitely is healthy. And for me personally too, is that's what I find so interesting about this whole process, and what keeps me here is it's the human element of development. You know, because these are real people that are working on a passion project, and it's actually it's exceedingly rare to be able to watch that unfold. I mean, the story of Pantheon's development is like, you couldn't script something that fascinating. And with all of the turmoil and the twists and turns and the suspense, like, you know, being able to watch that unfold it's like a movie. It's better than a movie. So, you know, I think the more that they can talk about that, I think, you know, the better it will be, because that's what really got me hooked. Was really, you know, for me back then, I really had to dig into it hard, because they didn't talk about it all that often, or at least not as much back then. But I think, you know, anybody who understands that you know, game developers aren't robots and they're real people, I think can see all that's going into this. Like, you know, we were joking about Joppa's hair and how it has changed throughout the years. I mean, you can see it as side by side. He'll probably hate me for this, but I want to like go in to the library. Let's go back. 2015. Like, you saw what Joppa looked like today. That's what he looked like back in 2015. I mean, you can, and that's black and white for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why his video. It's so old. It was back before color television. I don't know why his video feeds black and white, but I mean, it's like, you know, like you see those side by side comparisons of like, you know, presidents when they took office and then like the day they took office and then the day they left office. It's like, that's kind of what it reminds me of. I mean, this 2015, this was soon after Joppo was promoted to creative director. And, you know, we saw him today, and I'm not saying he's like, I'm not saying he's like elderly looking by any stretch of the imagination. Unfortunately, he's not leaving office. But you can see, but the point is you can see kind of like the toll that it takes on a person, and because it takes a lot of hard work and the stress of that job, and you know, not wanting to let people down. I point that out because I find it fascinating, and that's what I was talking about earlier, about how just incredible of an achievement it will be when Pantheon even just launches, even just regardless of how successful it may be at launch, even if it's not a massive blockbuster hit, just the fact that they, you know, will reach that finish line at all and launch a game, you know, with all of the vision and the, you know, the systems and the content that they had planned, like that will be an incredible accomplishment and a story that is worth remembering. Just the human determination and the grit and the perseverance to stick with something for so long, this many years, when you've got countless people online that just don't get it, and they just don't think, they don't believe in you, and they don't think that you're going to make it. But believing in their vision for what they know they can achieve, and striving toward that, and believing that it will be worth it. You know, that's a pretty rare characteristic, and I think that I find that very captivating and inspiring. And so, you know, that'll be quite the success story when they actually do get to that point, and you know, can prove all the people wrong that that were saying that they'll never even make it to launch. You know, that's I know I've talked about it before, but I think it bears repeating that you know, when you can stop getting so tied up on you know, dates and funding amounts and all these numbers, and trying to crunch these numbers and formulas and stuff to calculate the like chances of this or that happening. When you zoom out and you look at a team that has, you know, unified around this vision and has made mistakes and learned from those mistakes and carried on and suffered, you know, unexpected tragedy like the passing of their founder, Brad McQuaid, and then almost exactly 1 year later, the passing of another fellow developer and their friend. That's an incredible amount of just stick-to-itiveness that you don't see very often. So to see something through to completion, to set out and just do something because you feel like it's worth doing, I think is something that more people need to hear about. Molad, by the way, I should name the other developer that passed away the year after Brad. That was Molad. He was more behind the scenes, obviously not as famous or front facing of a figure as Brad McQuaid. Molad was on the tech team behind the scenes, but still, when he passed, they were telling all sorts of stories about how entertaining he was to be around, even in their meetings. Kind of like what they were talking about today. Like, sure, that would be something else to be a fly on the wall during their meetings, because that's something that's a side of them we don't get to see very often. So I'm glad they kind of showed that in this stream tonight, and just kind of the human camaraderie that they have as they trudge through this epic quest that they're on. Getting glimpses of that, I think, is great, and I hope I hope JN can be a more common spawn on these streams, because that banter is just absolutely priceless. So that's where I'm at on all of this, and I hope you can see that as well. I think that was pretty apparent after this stream. And I hope, even though this was like the official year in review, I hope we do get another stream next month. Either a development stream, or maybe, I don't know, maybe they are... This is speculation, but I could also see them maybe targeting doing a pre-alpha test in December and having co-stream that pre-alpha test session, and that being kind of the big, cap off for the year. That would certainly be a good way to end the year, with that big reveal, and doing that instead of a like development update Twitch stream. They've done that in the past, where they've replaced this monthly stream with a co-stream. So could see maybe that they're like aiming for that, which is why they would want to get their big year in review discussion in this month. Maybe you think that's a pretty like fair way of evaluating it. Yeah, mid December ish. I think that's fair. Again, that's just my guess, and who knows what's gonna happen. But based on what we're seeing, I think that makes a fair amount of sense. So we will see. We will see. On that note, though, again, remember, we will meet back here on this channel. Same Baz time, same Baz place. A week from today for the reaction to the next episode of Parting the Veil Live, which, according to let's go back to the library. We've got the monthly content calendar on the front page here every month. So in store for November 2022, we just did the developer live stream, Parting the Veil Live, November 17th. Joppa and Minus discuss design elements of Pantheon. That's pretty vague, so who knows what that is going to include. So we're just going to have to meet back up and find out. So, their stream, again, is on November 17th. I will not be watching that live. I will watch it the day after, along with you, right here on Twitch on the 18th. Okay? So I hope to see you there. In the meantime, I hope you have a great week. Stay safe, stay curious, and adventure on.